At this time, I'll call the Oak Island Town Hall regular meeting, March 13th, 2018, to order. And I'd like to say welcome to everybody. This is good. This is a one-of-a-kind meeting tonight, and we hope it goes well and we have some productive dialogue out of it. It's kind of hit and miss, so we're trying to try it out, see how it goes, and we may perk it as we go, but I hope everybody, and I appreciate everybody coming out tonight. This time I'll ask Councilman Blaylock to give the invocation and pledge of allegiance.
Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for allowing us to come together tonight. Please help us to have the wisdom and the guidance to do what's right for our community. In God's name we pray. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Excuse me. At this time, I'll call for approval or any adjustments to the agenda. Any adjustments to the agenda?
Madam Mayor, somewhere we have some additions to the committee appointments or the committee applicants.
That woke us up.
Time, yes.
That was funny. Do I need to call the names?
Yeah, go ahead.
Eddie Grooms is applied for the Emergency Advisory Board, Art Seifert, Parks and Rec Board, and add potential litigation to closed session.
At this time, I entertain a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Ayes unanimously. All right, this is our first town hall meeting, and we're going to turn it over to our moderator, Mr. David Kelly.
All right, thank you, Madam Mayor. What we have is we talked about doing two different projects at each one of these meetings. There are two projects being presented tonight. After each of the presentations, there will be time for questions concerning that project. Speakers will be asked to state their name and address prior to asking their questions and/or comments. Only one question at a time. If there is time at the end, we will open the floor back up for further discussion. There is an allotted time for this part of the meeting tonight at 1.5 hours. The public comment session will follow, and the usual 3-minute time limit for each public comment will take place at that time. And we are planning on having that for 30 minutes. After the first two presentations, we'll take a 10-minute break and then start back with a public comment. So at this time, we'd like to welcome Rob Watson. There he is. He's going to give you an overview and an update for our water meter replacement project.
Mayor, Council, I appreciate you having me back. I'm here to talk. My name is Rob Watson from Ferguson Waterworks out of Columbia, South Carolina, and we have a branch up in Wilmington. I'm here to talk to you tonight. We started the program installing the automated meter reading system in Oak Island about 3 weeks ago, and just coming to show you the progress and what this is going to be able to do for the utility and for the customer service. And so with the meter that's out there, it takes this transmitters. You're going to start seeing this. They're going to put one in each meter box. It's going to be at the top of the lid, and it takes a reading every hour. Every 4 hours, we have antennas up on the water tank that these are talking to, and then that's called back to the office, to the desktop. So every 4 hours, you're getting an updated reading from not only the previous 4 hours, but 168 prior readings. So there's data backfill so that you know that whatever you're using, it's going to be seen, and they're going to be able to be more proactive, letting you know of issues or anything like that. But that's basically how the system works. And when the readings come back into the office, I was just going to go into the software, go into the Meter Insight tab. So as these meters, you'll be able to see, thus far we've got a total of about 2,000 meters that are on the Census AMI system. The 377 are the first routes that they've done that are actually into the billing, and we can actually go into these. These are some that they've installed recently. The information just hasn't been put into the billing system yet. So, take a look at some of the readings, and I'm going to go pick one and look at it. And this is the information that's coming in on that hourly basis that I talked about. So each account, when this is completed and installed, which is probably going to take 3 or 4 months to get everything installed, according to the contractor, this is the information that we'll have on each account. So we'll have interval data that we'll be able to look at. We'll also be able to look at that interval data in a graph, which will show on the hour what the usage is. So if there's any type, you can see how much water this is. Looks like it's a hotel. It's using water on the hour. We can go back to, on certain dates, go back as long as the system's been installed, we can go back and look at different time zone or time frame. We can go back all the way to the first and look at it. It'll change it. Gives you the data, so we can, here's all the information. You can click down. It'll take you even down to the week, and then it's showing you by the hour exactly what their usage is. So we can do this also on the actual reads, showing what the readings are. As a cumulative read, as your register goes up, you can kind of see the reading going. And then on the table, this is what the billing clerks like, is that you can actually see your reading going up on. This is your register read, and at any time, any of the billings officials will be able to ping your meter and get the reading just as if they were looking at it. So this is live, absolute encoded register reading that you're going to be able to read. So let me see. Let me go back to the intervals, and it can actually show you by the hour what the reads are. So you can see the actual reading. So they don't have a leak because you have zero consumption in that hour. But you can see, I don't know why that's shaking. Am I doing that? Okay. Well, anyway, you can see that they're using, this is what they're using on the hour. But we can go back up here and we can look and see if they have any alarms. If there's a continuous usage for a 24-hour period, and then that's going to flag the office, and they're going to know, and they're going to be proactive and kept calling you and saying, hey, listen, you're using more water than you normally are. You may need to check for a leak. So that's a opportunity. You can see this account doesn't have any. If you're wanting to watch it, so the utility wanted to, you said, hey, I want you to make sure that I'm not using more than this water, we can actually put a watch me on it and look at the account. You can be notified by text or by email, however you want to be notified if you're using over a certain amount of water. On the map feature, one thing that we're doing also with this system is we're GIS-ing all of the meters. So we're able to locate at any time, this guy down through Google Maps, and it gives the utility a street view of where that meter is. And you see, here's the meter box, and there's the pinpoint. So when we're done with this project, we'll also instead of being in somebody's head where every meter is, we'll have everyone GIS. And that's something else that it's doing for the utility that's a big benefit. So going up to the details on it, then actions if there's anything that we want to do. But this is kind of the information. We can look it up by name. So it's really easy. It's going to make it a lot easier on the utility billing to help you when you have situations with broken pipe or anything like that. They'll be able to look it up and get you more information. You'll be able to. The next thing we're going to talk about is the town is giving you a utility portal, a customer portal, where you can actually go in and look at your own usage and keep up with it. So I'm going to go in and sign in here. And this is just a demo site. We don't have it set up yet, but this is out of North Las Vegas. And I looked at this earlier, and the billing cycle, the information's not in here, but there's vacation usage. You see the alerts that it has on it. Normally, it's going to give you your different months that you're using in the summer, what your normal use is, winter, and it has all that on the same screen. But we can go up to the dashboard and look down at usage details on this one account. And like I said, this is a demo of someone out in Vegas. And we can look for 24 hours, 7 days, or 30 days. You'll be able to look at it and see, or 12 months. You can look at your usage and kind of understand what you normally use. You can look at it on any day, and it'll show you, of course I've touched something here. So it'll tell you how many gallons that you use, the temperature that it was. They use weather data in here, and we'll go into that. It's looking, let's see, for 30 days. And when you have it, you'll have the whole screen. I'm having to scroll up on this one, but this shows you the weather data down below. You can see the days that it rained, and it kind of keeps up with that too. So when we're looking at irrigation, if you're irrigating during the rain days, you can actually monitor that and kind of see if you turn it on. So information that we can set, looking at the settings, is usage alerts. So you can set your own usage alerts where you'll be able to go in on a billing cycle. If I use over 10,000 gallons, I want to be notified, or 5,000, or whatever, and you set that. And with that hourly data coming through, it's going to alert you of any usage that you have. You can set a daily usage alert, and of course this is set by the home customer. Vacation alerts. So a lot of the beach houses here that are seasonal, they can be set. You can say a starting on, alert me when so many gallons are exceeded, and ending on. So if you're going away for Christmas or leaving, you can actually set this yourself. And it'll notify you by text or however. Alert recipients, you'll be able to know when the leak detected, reverse flow, magnetic tampering, high flow, a vacation usage warning. You can edit the recipients. And then these are the folks that they have set up that's going to tell them if they have any of these issues. And then the user settings is just, this is the email address that you set up in the phone number for that person that you want to put them in there. Now, one thing that we're doing with this new system that you have is the capability to remotely shut the water off from the office. The technology is now here with the Ally meter that Census Manufacturing is the system that we sold with the network, and it has an actuated ball valve inside the meter, and it can be controlled by a signal through the smart point, telling it to cut off and on. It takes about 40 seconds for it to cut off and on. You can monitor that. It also gives you a pressure reading. So if we're getting pressure readings, the town has it, they can see if they have a leak, like with the cold snap that we had, where we had some irrigation meters breaking, you can actually see the pressure drop so they know which area to look for. But this technology is fairly new, but it's been about 5 years they've been working on it, and it's here, and David's talking about possibly using some of these on certain accounts. So, but that's basically with. Unless there's some questions on the system. Yes. Ooh, maybe. Yes.
Well, if you'll hold on 1 second, he's going to come to you with the mic.
Yeah.
Sorry. If you'll stand up and tell us your name. Lisa, you need name and address for our records.
Rich Montgomery, 16th Place East. So does the data start collecting when it's installed, or
Right.
does previous data
Good question.
get incorporated too?
When the contractor's out there, he's activating the smart point, and it's given an acknowledgement that it's talking to a tower. Now, on 2 of the water tanks that we put the infrastructure up with so you basically have a canopy over Oak Island. And this is the same system that Brunswick County has and Holden Beach, and we're talking to some other ones. But this is, that's a good question, because once it's activated, then it's recording on an hourly basis. And
Well,
that
as somebody
data
who's
is
had a leak, I think that this is great. So
Yeah, exactly. So you'll have all this data, and it'll keep it in there as long as the town wants to keep going back as many years. It's just, that takes up, all those data endpoints take up memory.
So you'll actually be able to see your historical data from several years ago.
Yes, I'm
Once
sorry,
you
I was
get,
looking
yeah.
for that.
And then, I'm sorry, I think part of their question was your historical data from 2 years ago.
Yes,
If you
you-
don't get it installed until, say, this year, but you'll still be able to see your data from
You'll be able to
the
look back.
past years.
Right, you'll be able to look back and keep up with that, and that's gonna be up to the town, how much data you wanna keep on that.
Correct.
But the data it's kept up at the servers in Raleigh, and the servers are backed up in Boise and then backed up in Toronto. So the town's never gonna be down. They're promised 365, 24/7 service, and the servers won't ever be down, so the data's gonna be there.
If you have a question, raise your hand, David will bring the mic to you.
Thanks. Bob Mora, 119 West Beach. With this shut-off valve, is that something that every meter is going to have, or is that optional?
It's optional, and it's not something they're gonna put on every single account. There's a bigger cost to it, because of the actuated ball valve, but that's gonna be up to the town.
Does the homeowner have any say in that, or?
David? Yes.
Yes.
They do.
And as we all know, water is like gold on this island, so I have a vacation rental, and it would be huge if I could turn my water off when I'm not here. Is that going to be an option?
Well, there comes some risk with that, because if someone say a renter turned a hose, the bathtub on and plugged it, and after the water, somebody was cleaning and there was no water, and they cut it on and left it, and then you cut it on from Raleigh or wherever your home is, and then it floods the house, so that could be an issue. If the utility is notified, and David, this is gonna be something that's gonna be a town decision, but the utility can basically have someone go out, make sure you can cut it on, and, because you'll be able to see if there's water moving through that meter. So after you cut the water on, it just needs to be watched. I mean, in the next minute, you can ping that meter and get a reading. If you see the water's turning, then you know something's on. So it's just, you're gonna have to be careful with that, because we don't wanna have anybody,
You're talking about cutting the water on and off when you leave.
For whatever period I would like, as I understand it here.
Yes, I mean, you'll have control, and that's gonna be a town. If they wanna call and say, please cut my water off on this date, then we'll be able to cut it off. And I talked to Census, and they can give the town the capability through the customer portal to let you do that. But they have to warn that there are risks if someone cuts one on and leaves something running, that the water, if there's nobody there to monitor it on site.
So does the homeowner, through their portal, have the ability with this valve to turn it on or off, or do we have to call the utility and ask them to do it?
They can email or let the utility know to do that, I think.
So that wouldn't be part of our controlling from the portal?
That's what I'm saying. It could be, if the town really wants that, then Census, the manufacturer, is saying that they can allow that, but they're wanting to warn against having any, some.
So at some point, a
disaster.
decision will be made, and that information will be available?
And David?
Yeah, we'll be working that through the fee schedule this year and this year's budget to see how we're gonna work that.
Mr. Watson, I have a question. Is there, when you set your email and you go into your portal, will there be a way that you can trigger it to alert you if your water is excessive, or is it beyond?
Yes, you can.
So for a gentleman that has a rental, if he sets that alarm, it will text him or email him that he's running a lot of water, and then I guess you would be triggered to call the town hall.
If you set it at zero usage, it's gonna trigger you when it starts seeing water going through that meter, it's gonna alert you that, hey, there's something going on here. Because I know it was brought up that there's sometimes problems with people breaking into homes and living in them while someone's not here. This is definitely gonna tell them. If there's any water used, they turn that meter on and it's been cut off. And they won't be able to, if this is cut off by the city, they won't be able to cut this back on, because it's internal. This is the actual valve itself. So, did that answer your question?
Yes, it did. Thank you.
I'm Betty Hupp, and I live at 7916 East Yacht Drive. I'm one of those people who does not have any type of computer or a smartphone. And when my water is excessive, or when it's running and the water's off, there's a little something on top of my meter that I can say, something's wrong, I've got a leak. what will I do with all this new stuff?
Well, with the new register that we're installing, you actually have, you'll be able to flip the lid just like you do now, and you'll be able to see if there's any water flowing through that meter. If you've got everything cut off, it's got a leak detection on it that you'll be able to look at it.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're still manually reading. You can still look at your meter and get the reading off of it.
Any more questions
I got it.
regarding?
Has this product been out long enough where there's been studies? How long is the lifespan of that meter?
Okay, and this is fresh, the actuated ball valve. I mean, it's been on the market. They're just now starting to ship them. So I've had customers that said, every new tap goes in. I said, please don't do that. It's like we want to try a few of them. All of my accounts, I'm saying, please try 1 or 2, maybe 3, because they are a little bit more expensive than a regular meter.
Right.
And we just want to try a little bit at a time, looking at it, seeing how it's going to affect the city or the town, and be able to help the town. So,
Okay.
yeah, I definitely. Now, the meter technology has been out for 8 or 9 years. The meter technology.
The wizard.
The meter technology's been out for about 8 or 9 years, and what they've done is just put it's called the iPearl meter, and they've put this actuated ball valve in that this past year. Now, this also gives you a pressure reading and a temperature reading. So I have utilities that are using this as a blow-off at the end of a line. So if we see temperature going up, so they can monitor the temperature and monitor the pressure. So like we had with the cold snap, when you start seeing these meters breaking loose, you're going to know it a lot quicker.
What would be the cost of installation of one of them? You know
Well, the
offhand?
cost for the meter itself is $450. The installation is the normal installation that you're paying now. I think it's $50.
Okay. Well, I'm asking this because if a resident took it of his own to go ahead and put one in his to be able to control,
Right.
for them to know if something would go wrong, what it would cost them to replace it. So because we don't have no data how long it would actually last.
Well, the meter, it's got a warranty. Okay, it's good for 2,000 turn-ons and offs.
Okay.
So 2,000 turns
Okay.
in this valve. It's an actuated ball valve. Every 14 days, it self-actuates itself real quick to keep it lubricated. It's good for 2,000 turns. If you do that 2 times a month, 24, it's about 80-something years. So
Okay.
it's made for 10,000. They're guaranteeing it for 2,000. It's got a 15, so there's 2 batteries in here. One for the electronics that actually read the water as it's going through there. And the other is to control this actuated ball valve, which takes a lot of power. So it's 15 years on this actuated ball valve is the guarantee on it.
Good deal.
While we're on the, while we're on the subject of reliability, can you comment on how reliable the system is? You've installed several of these, right?
Yes, sir. The oldest system is Chesterfield County that I installed. It was 10 years ago. This is our 10th year. They have 850 square miles with 14 of their water tanks it reads, and today they're still reading 100% of their meters. The only thing they're not reading, if somebody cuts a wire, hits it with a lawnmower, something like that, that's what we can't guarantee. But when Census does a study, in which we did for Oak Island, it's a guarantee of a 98.5% read rate. That 1.5% is stuff they can't control. Maybe the data hasn't been put into the system yet or something they can't control. But we try to read 100%.
So 98.5 is your guarantee?
Yes, sir. That's a guarantee. That's the documents that were signed as a 98.5. So they're telling you with 2 water tanks, that's all that you're going to need to give you the coverage over your whole network.
I understand that's your margin of error. Let me ask about backup. You mentioned you have multiple backups for
Yes,
the
sir.
server. Has the system, in your experience when you've installed it elsewhere, gone down and you've been forced to rely on a backup?
Well, when we had the hurricane came up the coast last year, we have Hilton Head, Berkeley County, Mount Pleasant, and I get notifications of when these accounts go down. And all it was the power went out. They all have generators, backup generators, and they've got a backup battery inside the base station itself that we sold you. So you see it go down. It's kind of eerie seeing it moving up the coast. Brunswick counties, there went down. But yes, sir, we have had that, and it just goes down. No, lightning strike hit an antenna or something. It's rare because they ground them really well, but it can happen.
Okay, so you have multiple redundancy if the system goes down?
Yes, sir, we do.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
and let me ask about the accuracy of this measurement versus a manual reading.
Okay, It's an absolute encoded register where that if it can't give you the reading that's on the odometer, because there are some systems out there that we've seen that when you get a reading here, it doesn't match the register. They go through great pains to make sure it's absolute encoded technology has been out since the 80s to make sure that what you're getting is the actual read. So that's, the technology's been around since the 80s on this absolute encoded, but there's the data itself, there's 120 hours of data in the actual, in this meter here, but you have 35 days of hourly backup history in this transmitter. But the accuracy of the meter, you're going to get the read. If it can't give you the accurate read, it's going to give you a no communication, a non-comms.
So in the event of a dispute as to the amount of water used, there's historical data that's actually a physical record versus the instrumentation.
Right, and the meter can always be tested at any time. Just it's a positive displacement meter that we're putting in, like the town's always used in Brunswick County, and everybody around you use it. They're not using this electronic meter, and so it's a oscillating piston, mechanical device, and they slow down over time with wear.
So in the
Changing out all these meters, by changing out all these meters, we're also increasing the accuracy of the meters.
right. So in the installation phase, have you encountered folks who have suddenly looked at their bill and said, "Wait a minute, where'd this come from?" Or do these tend to reflect the historical data within some margin of error?
Well, when you have a meter, some older meter that's been out there 30 years, it's probably not running at AWWA new meter standards, which is 98% and some change. So you may have a meter that's running at low, medium, and high flow at 75% on different ones or 80%. So your bill may increase with these new meters just because it's accurate. It's like when you run it, if you're at a gas station, you ran it, you wouldn't want your gas pumps running, you want them running as accurate as you can. Because as we talked about the preciousness of the water that we have, we want to make sure that just being billed for what you're using.
Thank you.
Does the audience have any more questions regarding the meters, electronic meters?
Lynn McDowell, 6407 Tortoiseshell Court. I think I heard you mention that there are 2 batteries in...
There are in this device here, not in the meters that are being put in your system now. This is a special device with the actuated cutoff.
So what powers the transmission of the data from each house?
Well, there is a battery, and so you have a battery inside this transmitter. So it has to get that signal out to the tower.
Okay, and
So
what happens when
3.6
those, how long do the batteries last? How do they get changed
It's a 20-year
out?
warranty on the transmitter.
On the battery itself?
Yes. It's 10 years, 100%, 10 years prorated. There's a proration period at the last 10, but we've had these systems out. Myrtle Beach and North Myrtle Beach were some of the first ones. When we first came out with them 18 years ago, they had a 1-year warranty, and some of those are just now dying. So we don't know how long they'll last or not. They don't have an expiration date where it's going to die on this date. Census buys from 3 different battery manufacturers worldwide, and they really monitor that because they're putting their name on the line with this battery.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, you will. In here, the same 3.6 volt battery. They've got 2 of them in this device.
Does council have any more questions? Anyone from the audience? Thank you, Mr. Watson.
Thank you.
Thank you for
Appreciate your
coming.
time.
This time, Mr. Martin, you're up next.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you, Rob.
Okay, thank you, everybody. So just wanted to go ahead and give you sort of an update on the beach and inlet projects that we have going on. As you'll see, we got a number of different initiatives that are going. Some of them are finally coming to a close. So we're starting to sort of settle out as we get really getting ready to start on the master plan. But I kind of wanted to give you an update on all the projects that we have going on right now with the town. So the first one is one that just finished construction. It's the Post Matthew FEMA Emergency Dune Restoration Project. Of course, we just kind of worked out over 2 fall seasons, just given the fact that we really couldn't get started last year until right before a month before the turtle window came upon us, so we got as much done as we could. Of course, there was additional erosion that happened. We had FEMA come back out here and give us sort of an updated amount that they would be able to fund with the project, and we worked through that and just have finished. Talk a little bit about the Corps of Engineers Delta project. This is a project that the town has given roughly about $3 million to the Corps of Engineers to help put some material in the eastern part of town, and I'll talk about that. Talk a little bit about the turtle habitat restoration project, and then some other things that are coming online now with some of the things we're trying to do with Lockwood's Folly Inlet. And then finally, I'll talk about the master plan that we really are now starting to get going on. So first of all, I'll talk about Post Matthew. So when we did this fall, we started November 20th. The completion date was roughly about March 2nd. We had to spend a lot of time updating the design to keep the project within budget. Of course, as you guys probably well know, that there's not a lot of berm out there, so the dune is changing all the time. When we made the decisions with where was going to get sand, there's a rule that I'll talk about in a minute that FEMA will allow reimbursement for areas that don't have 6 cubic yards above the 5-year surge level, and I'll show a graphic to kind of explain that. With the beach profile data that we have that roughly about every 1,000 feet. So we don't have it, in front of every home. So, we're kind of strung to, the limit of that data. But of course, the Corps of Engineers came out at the same time, and we were very close to their estimate. So there again, I just want to explain why some areas got material and sand and some did not. Of course, we were trying to realign the dune back where it was to the extent practicable. That was one of the, permit conditions from CAMA. We did have some issues with sand color that necessitated a change order. We hit sort of this ribbon of darker material that FEMA was concerned about, and so we had to do a change order, but overall we did stay within the overall budget. We did have multiple design revisions that were required to keep the project in budget and within the available volume for the borrow pit, because there again there was concerns about the quality of the material from some of the agencies, and so we had to make sure we were staying in line with that. So this graphic right here is sort of showing sort of a typical dune section. So this is, imagine yourself sitting in the water and you're looking down toward the beach, maybe down toward Wilmington Harbor. So here's the dune, the backside where the homes are, you're going out. And so essentially what FEMA would reimburse you for is that if you had less than 6 cubic yards of material above this 5-year surge level, which was estimated to be 4.5, elevation 4.5 NAVD, then they would allow you to put material to get you back above that 6 cubic yards per foot. So there again, this is really just more for an emergency condition, just to provide some protection during a larger event. So this is not really sort of a typical sort of beach nourishment project. So these are the areas that we ended up doing that met that criteria, from Southeast 61st Street to roughly around 22nd Place East. We picked up again around 16th Place East, and ended up around 3rd Place East, a little bit west of that. We picked up again around 13th Place West, going to roughly 25th Place West, and then we picked up with the last reach. We kind of had to have a broken part here because what happened was, of course, the beach had changed again in the interim between the material doing, so we kind of had to drop out this one piece of area here where there wasn't any infrastructure, just to keep us relatively within budget on that project. So those were the areas where sand was placed. Essentially what it was the dune crest was roughly about 6 feet across at the top, We're just putting vegetation on the backside because there again we know that this front side is going to be under some attack relatively quickly. And that was what was sort of constructed. And we had a constant elevation along each reach, but that had to go up and down just to keep us within the project volume. What this graphic is showing you is that if we started from the east part of the project and sort of went our way up, so the blue line was, we roughly had 104,000 cubic yards is what we were placed and what FEMA had agreed to place on the area. That was our initial budget that we tried to do that. 104,300 is what we did. The red is what you can see we actually placed. So what you can see is that as soon as we kind of got out there a couple of thousand feet down the beach had already eroded more than what when we put the plans together. So essentially we started getting in a deficit where we were going to really be overfilling and run the risk of, the budget being overdone. So that's when we started kind of dropping the elevation of the dune to make sure that we sort of stayed within budget. So what you can see is that we roughly ended up with right around 106, so we were roughly about 2,000 cubic yards over the original design. But what we try to do always is leave ourselves a little bit of a buffer in these things when we do these designs because we know that the beach is changing. So this is just sort of a summary of the project budget. So originally we had an original FEMA authorization of 2.7 and the town, state, which really I think the state is covering this. So originally the total expected cost was going to be roughly around $3.56 million. In between the summer, FEMA came back out and looked and saw how much the area had changed. So we got a revised budget of roughly 5.228. So our total project expenditures expected were roughly right now, looks like we're tracking right around 4.8 million. We got some additional sifting and sand moving work expected, but we're definitely expecting to stay within the original budget so that we're going to be within what FEMA and the state would reimburse for the project. Talk a little bit about the Corps of Engineers Delta project. So what this is about every 2 to 3 years the Corps of Engineers comes through and dredges out the channel for the deep draft shifts to come up to Wilmington Harbor. So 2 times out of 3 the material goes on Bald Head Island. 1 time out of 3 it comes to Caswell Beach, Oak Island. So this time is when it's Caswell Beach, Oak Island's turn. So what you can see was that the original plans that they had, we had talked with them, with the Corps of Engineers, about placing additional material. So their base project ended up being these 2 areas here that you see in black, and you can see where the bridge is. So there was going to be some material placed into Oak Island, but only the extreme east end. What this white part is showing is sort of the add alternate project, or sort of the option that is in the current Corps of Engineers plan set to place additional material further in to Oak Island. Why can't we go further than this? Well, the main issues is that we're expecting, or the Corps is expecting, a pipeline dredge to put this in. So there's some that a pipeline dredge is not there's 2 types of dredges. One which has sort of the thing that burrows at the end of it, and there's a pump right on the barge, and it just pumps it directly in. It's not holding it and then transversing it. If this were a hopper project, you could place material much further into Oak Island, but this is expected to be a pipeline project, and those are only expected to go so far without having to put additional booster pumps and things of that nature. So that's why this is sort of limited to the eastern end of town. What the Delta project is hopefully going to give the town of Oak Island is we'll roughly get a berm that's roughly about 125 feet in width, up around elevation 6 or 7, and it'll push the mean high water line out about 110 feet and roughly place about 40 cubic yards per linear foot of beach. So the project extends in the town, the timeline. So the Corps is showing roughly 120 to 130 foot berm from the town line to roughly southeast 58th Street. The base project, which is within the Corps' plans, just goes from the town line to southeast 77th. So that's roughly about 4,000 feet or 160,000 cubic yards. The Delta project would go from that point to southeast 58th, which is around 6,000 feet, which is another 250. So if the bids come within budget, the unit rate would be roughly about $12 a cubic yard. Just to give you an idea, for the truck haul project that we just finished up, that was roughly $27.90 a cubic yard. So you can see that this is a good bit more cost effective. The town has allotted $3 million for this project. So we were hoping that we would get bids back in November 2017, but when the Corps put it out for bids and they had the bid opening, there were no bids on the project. It was kind of late in the season to be doing the project. A lot of these dredge companies are, busy a pretty good ways out. The Corps is currently planning, what we've heard is that they're currently planning to re-advertise this month. We've been keeping an eye on the website to see where the old plan set was, to see when that's being updated and when we can expect bids for that. We checked today and it's still not kind of on that website, so we're going to be reaching out to the Corps to see when they're planning to rebid it. And if an awardable bid is received, construction may occur during the summer, but if not, the project should be rebid in the fall. So there again, at least based on what we've heard or hearing right now, there could be material coming this summer or hopefully sometime in the fall, but again, that would only cover the eastern part of town. FEMA Turtle Habitat Project. So this is sort of a map of the town. So this is sort of showing where the Delta project would be. This is showing you where the Turtle Habitat project extents would be. So this is sort of the next section of town within what we call Oak Island East. I'm just going to show you this real quick because we try to measure sort of beach protection as far as how much sand is from the top of the dune out to the bar, because this is really the material that sort of absorbs the wave energy that's coming in and hits it. So we kind of measure this in cubic yards per linear foot of beach and kind of look at that and see how much material you have. So what this is a plot showing the east end moving toward the west end. So you can see sort of after Matthew, or what the last 3 or 4 measurements have been. So you can see this is where the Delta project would be. Relatively speaking, along Oak Island, it's one of the areas that has some of the highest levels of protection relatively, because there again, why is that? Well, that's probably because that's the area that's been receiving material from the Wilmington Harbor project every 6 to 9 years or so. This next section where the Turtle Habitat project was placed, you can see it's one of the areas that needs material the most. So we're trying to get that going, and I'll talk about some of the alternatives that we have. So currently, the FEMA has authorized roughly $6 million. The state and town, or the state's expected to do $2 million. So it's roughly an $8 million grant for this project, roughly 364,000 cubic yards. We started some discussions in the fall with the Corps about seeing if we could piggyback this onto the Wilmington Harbor project and just dredge additional material, because the dredge would already be here. Maybe we could even get more material for this amount of money. And of course we know that the material that comes out of the channel is good and clean. You don't have to worry about rocks and things of that nature and compatibility. However, we kind of have run into a roadblock with that because there's issues from the Corps about the funding source. So there's an issue with the Corps being able to accept monies that's ultimately coming from another federal agency. We've talked to them about, well, what if the town just pays you out of their funds themselves? We're still having those discussions. If it's going to be let in the next month, though, that probably will not happen. But if it gets delayed again into the fall, we are going to continue to try to see if we can do that because, again, if the Corps has already paid to mobilize the dredge, those kind of costs can be upwards of $3 to $4 million for dredge mobilization, demobilization. So if we can piggyback onto onto that project, I mean, that would be the best scenario for the town. But we also know that now time's getting short, so we're going to start looking at some other options, such as Yellowbanks, the offshore site that Holden Beach just used for their project, and possibly also maybe an inland truck haul, depending on the schedule. We need to talk to FEMA and see how much time we have to spend these funds. One of the things we'd like to do, if they could let us have a year or two to do this, is that, again, just not saying this could happen, but what we would also like to do, if we can't piggyback onto the Corps project, then if we could go out and expand the offshore site that Holden Beach just used and do the turtle habitat project and do also part of the overall project for the town, the initial project, that would be a cost savings to the town as well. So those are all sort of things that we're trying to do to make the best use of town funds. I know this is a lot of information, but you are sensing kind of everything that we're kind of working on here. So potential Lockwoods Folly projects. So there again, the west end, sort of the hot spot that we had during the Eastern Channel project that we did 3 or 4 years ago, sort of re-emerged again. It seems to have come up. We see sort of the escarpments that are formed. We've had some shoreline recession, over the last 6 to 8 months of roughly 55 feet. So there's concerns about that. Again, from the west end perspective. So I'm going to talk about some of the things that we're looking at to try to deal with that issue. Of course, there's what we show here in Lockwoods Folly Inlet, which is in red. So what happens here is usually the Corps of Engineers comes by, either quarterly or twice a year with the special purpose dredge and dredges, roughly 30 to 40, 50,000 cubic yards, and then places it into near shore. And that has been historically gone to Holden Beach. I'll talk a little bit about what we're trying to do there. Also, the AIWW crossing, that's this area that's shown in yellow. So every 2 to 3 years, the Corps of Engineers does a project where they come and dredge this out. This is roughly 100 to 150,000 yards that's done, and that's coming up for this fall. So that's an option for material, and of course there's also the Eastern Channel project that was done. Just to give you a sense of when we did the Eastern Channel project 2 to 3 years ago, that was roughly about 200,000 yards that we dredged out of this area and placed sort of in this area. So you can kind of get a sense of the magnitude of the kind of project that we might need to be thinking about. So what we're trying to do from the Lockwoods Folly perspective or the West End perspective is the town is, of course, in the process of acquiring its own permit to dredge Lockwoods Folly. Now, again, that's just to the current core extents. So that's only 6 to 8 feet deep and only maybe 100 feet wide. So it's not a lot of volume of material. But there again, what this will do is we'll have the same permit authority that the Corps of Engineers has to do what they've been doing. The town has been in discussions with the Corps, the county, and the town of Holden Beach concerning upcoming nearshore placements. The current project is going on right now. We tried to talk to them about that last fall, and that was not feasible due to the limited schedule for the Corps of Engineers plant. There again, what it is that they were saying with the alignment of the channel and the Corps plant can only be here for like a week or two, so they can come to this side of Holden Beach a lot quicker than fighting against the tide and coming up to this area. So what they said is they'd at least this time they could not do it and put the material in the near shore at Oak Island just because this would be a less efficient and they wouldn't be able to get as much volume done. So therefore, we've kind of told them that we want to be on the list for the next quarterly project, and of course, in discussions with the county, the town, and the town will likely have to pay the additional cost for the increased travel time. So that's just something that we'll have to consider and do. That that they say that, well, if they could do it this quickly for Holden Beach, but it takes 1.5 more times to do it for Oak Island, then we'll have to pay that additional time and money for that. The town's also asked to be included in discussions for the crossing project this fall. So again, that one's the one that's roughly 100,000 yards up in this area. So again, that would be a nice project to be able to place onto this area. But there again, that material historically has always gone to Holden Beach, so there would be some discussions about that, I'm sure. Okay, last thing, the master plan beginning phases and steps. So as you can see, we've been kind of over the last 6 months working on all these other things, but some of these have come to a close, especially the dune project. So we're now really starting to head steam on the master plan. And so the first steps of that is to verify the sediment need for the initial projects and over the next 50 years. And you guys might remember that we were estimating roughly somewhere between 2 to 3 million yards for the initial project and 1 million cubic yard every 6 years for maintenance. Again, another reason we've been taking these efforts on the Delta project and the turtle habitat project is that for everything that we can do with those, it will lower this number so that hopefully the initial project that ultimately the town will have to finance would be less. Of course, though, this still may be a pretty large project with a pretty large initial price tag, so it might have to be built in phases. But right now we are starting to lay out the field investigations. So the two main things about that is the geotechnical vibrocoring for sediment compatibility. So we have to go out to these areas where we think there might be material and do corings and pull that up and do testing for to see how compatible it is with the native beach. Make sure we're not in areas of a lot of rock and things of that nature or muds. So that's one of the big first steps. And then we're also going to be doing some velocity studies or going out there with boats to sort of see how flows happen within Lockwoods Folly Inlet, because another part of our master plan is develop sort of an inlet management plan for Lockwoods Folly Inlet and see if there's a way that we can sort of readjust this inlet to where, historically what's happened is that when the ebb channel's been one way or the other, either Holden Beach or Oak Island is the one suffering. Our theory is that what we want to test is that if we can kind of come up with more of a centralized location, that maybe it would be okay on both sides. Unfortunately, we have some shipwrecks that are in our way that we would have to deal with that. That's one of the big things that would have to be done with that project, but there again, that's some of the things we're looking to do. Here's some of the offshore sites that we're going to be looking at first. Of course, there's the Central Reach project that Holden Beach used for their project. We've gotten the data from them. It looks like we're going to have to expand that site in order to be able to get a large enough volume to make it worthwhile out of that. Of course, there's some of the ODMDS that we need to go and look at, Frying Pan Shoals, and of course Jaybird Shoals, but Bald Head currently has a proposal out to utilize that. And then we're also wanting to do some testing on Yellowbanks to see if there's some areas that we can utilize in that and not maybe have some of the same issues with the rock that happened with the older project, as well as the Eastern Channel. So ultimately, what we want to do is, with the master plan, is to determine how far east within the town that we can cover with the harbor deepening project, or I should say the harbor maintenance project. We want to see what we can do with Lockwoods Folly to take care of the west end, and then find material either in these inshore locations or offshore locations to sort of take care of the middle part of the island. So again, that's sort of the theory that we're kind of working toward with the master plan, but we really just are beginning with that. So there again, I know that was a lot of information, but I'll be glad to entertain any questions. That's sort of an update of where we are.
Okay, we'll open the floor up to the audience. We've allotted 40 minutes for the Q&A. Any questions on sand, keep it specific, and David will come to you with the microphone.
Leon Hicks, 4024 Barnes Bluff. So I saw your figure there of $8 million, roughly, and that's for a year's level of effort to basically dredge and put sand along the beaches. So my real question is, how then does that line up or configure with what might be called an engineered beach plan? If we're going to be, is likely you're going to be spending $8 million a year to continue this effort?
Right. So let's go back to that plot. So the $8 million is actually what FEMA has said that they would, or between that and the state, what they would reimburse for what was lost out of the turtle habitat project area. So this is something that's coming from FEMA and the state to pay for material that was lost during Hurricane Matthew. So this is no town fund, or I should say minimal town funds here. So this is totally separate. As far as the master plan goes, you know what, and the reason we were trying so hard to get these funds in place and this volume out there in place is that as much as we can get out of these projects is less that then ultimately we would need for the town's engineered beach. You remember last year we had discussions where it was going to be a pretty large project to get up to sort of a 10-year storm and things of that nature. So one of the reasons that we're pushing so hard to get these material is that then that can maybe help us get up to more of an engineered beach level rather than a recreational beach. But there again, that's just still yet to be determined. But the overall goal is to get up to, you know, something that the town could afford and as well as what could meet the requirements for an engineered beach. But we don't quite know what that answer is yet.
Ms. Thorne?
Thank you. I'm Betty Thorne, 2501 East Beach Drive. Most of my questions have already been answered through your presentation, and I thank you for that. But I do have two fairly easy questions and one observation. I have it on very good authority, Darrell Royal, that there's more than enough sand in the Yellow Banks to do the turtle project. So I'll just put that out there for your consideration, okay? And my other questions have to do with the dune placement that has just occurred. One is, will there be horizontal sand fencing placed along the landward toe of that dune so as to keep people from scrambling over the dune instead of using the proper crosswalks? That's one question. And the other is, will the town allow some of us who wish to put up stay off the dune signs, or will the town be doing that?
That actually may be a question for our town manager. Okay, go ahead.
Sure, absolutely, absolutely. So point well taken about Yellow Banks, and of course that's going to be one of our first spots to look at too. The reason that we're trying to push so hard to make sure that the Wilmington Harbor is a closed door is there again, every bit of material we can get out of that, we're saving the rest of it for Oak Island.
Exactly.
So that is the reason why, but you know, if that door, it looks like it's closing, and as soon as it looks like we're pretty sure it's going to be shut, okay, yeah, we're going to be looking at Yellow Banks pretty quickly. Secondly, as far as the dune, we did put some post and rope things out there to try to get people, and we tried to put them back where the old walkways were. So we're trying to do what we can to kind of to get to that point. But there again, the reason we haven't put anything too permanent as part of the project is that there again, we know that one good nor'easter that could come through could really wreak havoc with some of that too. So we were a little hesitant to put anything too permanent into that part. But then as far as some of the other questions, I'll let David answer.
We've purchased another 80 stay off dune signs. If you get in touch with Connect, Public Works. Give her your address, and then we can get some signs placed. We have 80 of them coming in probably by the end of the month, and then we're going to order another 80 after that.
Are you volunteers?
Sir?
Can volunteers do it rather than wait for the Public Works?
If you want to come pick up a sign, yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yeah, you really need them already.
Bill Millard, 110 Southeast 10th Street. You alluded just in your last statement to a possible nor'easter. My question was going to be, obviously it's going to take time for the vegetation to take effect. What percentage of the dune do you believe you would lose if we have a Matthew level or greater event this year?
Well, if you had a Matthew level event again, I mean, of course, it depends on if it came in at high tide. Yeah, if it came in at high tide, I mean, a good portion of that dune could be taken out. There again, you got to remember that when FEMA reimburses you for these projects, if a local sponsor or a local town has gone through the process of doing an engineered beach, then you can get the material that was lost during that named event. Oak Island does not have that yet. So
They could possibly get that.
I'm sorry?
You could possibly get that from
You could possibly, yes.
No guarantee.
Very, very true. Yeah, there's no guarantees in life. That's true. But anyway, but the other thing, or the other way you can get FEMA funds is through this emergency dune, which is really just sort of to serve as a stopgap measure. So that's what this project really is a stopgap measure to provide, some protection during another event in the hopes that it lasts until something else can be done.
So Matthew was actually a blessing in disguise? Sort of.
Right. Well, I mean, the great thing is I shouldn't say the great thing, but one of the things we did see with some of our survey information is even though the dune was taken out, after we placed it last fall, it did end up on the berm, and there was a little bit of recovery, so that material did stay in the system, but roughly you're talking about 100,000 yards over 9 miles, so it's not a lot of material given what the overall need really is, which is in the 2 to 3 million cubic yard range.
Diane Pinsker, 5524 East Beach. I don't know where everybody else lives, but the dunes across from where we live, at the apex of the new dune, there's nothing on the other side. It's a drop-off now. So those ropes that are put up are a rope to nowhere, if you will. So I guess my question is, it's not just ours, at the corner. It goes everywhere. So how do you expect people to access the beach? And when the vacationers start coming and see they can't get anywhere, they will start using any means they can because it's just impossible, and not everybody's going to go down to the corner or, to further away to get to the beach. So I'd like to know, you said some of the dunes were shorter as you ran into budget constraints. It's almost like it's too high because now it's just going to break off, and it'll, every full moon, I think, another foot comes off. You don't need a nor'easter, really.
Right. So eventually what will happen is, as you said, those events will kind of work the dune height down to a point to where it's not such a drop-off. The other thing that may happen is that, one of the things we had to do last year was to actually go in and do some bulldozing of the front to kind of level things out from a safety perspective. So that may happen again this year, depending on what Mother Nature does for us before what happens or when the tourist season comes in.
Really need something, because I can see how it's just going to be torn apart, basically, the way it is right now.
Right.
Johnny, can I'd like to talk about the master plan, because to me, that's the issue here. And I certainly would applaud all of your efforts to find additional dollars, which would lower the potential cost of a master plan. But I think the fact of the matter is we're in a very precarious situation with these dunes. We're a storm away. And so my question is, given that sort of analysis of the beach, What sort of timeline are we talking about to get these surveys done, vibe coring, especially if we're phasing it? Are we talking 3 to 5 years to a recreational beach? Somewhere,
Right.
as we talked last year, 35 million? I mean, I think we need to get serious about this. We need a plan.
Right.
Because what we're doing is stopgapping it, if I hear you correctly, right?
Sure, right.
Is that correct? I want to make sure I'm correct.
Right, as far as the emergency dune project is just really a stopgap
Fair enough.
to do that. I mean, the things we're doing with the Delta project and with the turtle habitat project, I mean, hopefully those will be a large enough berm to where that'll be something substantial enough to where it could really almost start acting as an area where you do have some protection.
That's part of the beach, but
Right.
give me the timeline for the master plan.
Sure.
From
That-
the drawing board, to phase 1, to phase, whatever, phase X.
Right. So essentially, what with that process would be roughly a year would be for us to do all the field investigations, the fiber coring, get that information, do the analysis, and determine really what the sand need is and where the sand's going to come from. And then the permitting, so that's when we'll know what the plan should be, about a year or so. Then we'll have to get the permits for that, which could take another year. So as we said, sort of when we started this process, that once we start the master plan, it's probably a 2 to 3 year process. And the other thing, and the other thing that could extend the time of that, and we may have to break that off and keep it separate, would be sort of the Lockwoods Folly Inlet Management Plan, because that's going to be a bigger overall issue that'll have to sort of be talked about with Holden Beach and things of that nature. So we're already kind of thinking about how we might need to do the other parts a little bit more quickly so that that doesn't hold us out. But yeah, I would say at the earliest 2 years.
So essentially, we're going to roll the dice for 2 to 3 years. Let me ask this question, because we talked a lot about this last year. The engineering costs, one time only versus to get to an engineered beach versus several times if we do less than that. Is that still a true statement?
Yeah, I mean, once we have that sort of figured out, I mean, the engineering cost of our part, then it's just redoing what we have to go out there to maintain it. So our costs from our perspective will go down considerably. It'll just be really us doing the plans and specs for the next nourishment event. There won't be any engineering design or anything of that nature, because all of that would have been figured out before then.
And from your perspective, are you proceeding with the master plan now?
Yes. Yeah, we're starting it right now. I mean, we just finished that project, so now we're full bore on that.
So the clock's running.
Yes, sir. Believe me, I understand it.
I'll turn it back to the audience. David, go ahead.
You mentioned the,
Name and address, please.
Name and address, David.
Roy Joyner, 102 Southeast 19th Street, Oak Island. You mentioned the piggyback project possibility. In the logistic side of it, it seems to me if you have the dredge there and the sand's there, why would you want to move it somewhere else? So my question is, I guess, does the engineer, do they have the yes or no on this project, or who do we go through to possibly get this done, if it's feasible?
Right. So when we say about piggybacking, the town of Oak Island doesn't have a permit to dredge Wilmington Harbor. So that's the Corps of Engineers. So when I say piggyback, that's what I mean, because we're really having to piggyback on their permit and their authorization to dredge the material. So
we really can't do that without their permission.
right, we don't have a permit to do our own separate project for that. We would have to have our own permit to dredge Wilmington Harbor to do that. So that's why we're kind of stuck with piggybacking that particular one.
Okay, Bob Mora, 119 West Beach. Regarding the Post-Matthew project, we were one of the unfortunate ones who were deleted. I never got any public notification or any justification as to why that was done or how or who made that, spilt milk at this point. But since the project is to protect property and the budget included some type of vegetation planning up and down the whole section that was to be done, are we going to get any vegetation to create the semblance of a contiguous dune? Because I know that you are aware that when you have breaches in the continuity of a dune, the tide will come up and wash out what you've done. So will we get any vegetation? Just a question I have.
So there again, and I apologize about that issue, but we could go back and look to see what actually happened. But as I said, a lot of the initial decisions were made on those 1,000-foot cross sections where we had the data. And there again, there are certain areas where the reason that there was breaks is that there were certain areas that FEMA, you could even have a flat area. You could even have sort of a, I guess I should say, the whole thing is that 6 cubic yards per linear foot above the 5-year surge elevation. So there were some areas of town that I would say might even be flatter than this, but if this whole area was sort of filled in, you'd have above the 6 cubic yards per foot. And so there was this sometimes areas, and again, that's just a FEMA rule that they will reimburse up to that point, but if you have above 6 cubic yards, then they're not going to reimburse. They don't, the dune could be flat and whatnot. As far as the vegetation goes, where we're placing the dune, there's vegetation to be done along the top of it and the backside. There was what FEMA requires is where you put the dune, or really, it's really CAMA required as part of their permit. Where we did place a dune, they wanted vegetation. So it wasn't sort of a continuous thing, but I understand your point about the fact that if it's not continuous, that there's going to be weak points. But there again, that's just where the math and the FEMA math sort of directed things.
Well, I would like to make a suggestion to the town, giving the observations of permitting and the challenges of getting a dredge here and, the cost of putting it here and then taking it away, that maybe you consider purchasing a dredge yourself and running that dredge and having it available and getting the permits. I've gone online and got some case studies of beach communities that have done that with great success, and we might even charge our neighbors to the south there for some of the sand that they take frequently from us. I'm a small businessman, and I think some entrepreneurial thought would be in order. I also would like to say I've owned my property since 1991 and therefore went through Floyd. I'm very happy to see there's some talk again, and I emphasize again, of an engineered beach. So we've missed a window, and the Band-Aid lasted 15 years. It did grow a beautiful dune with just vegetation planted on the flat beach over 8 or 10 years, which, 3 or 4 years have taken away. It's a valuable resource that everybody enjoys, and I would encourage you to put your foot on the pedal, not give up. Look at the big picture, spend the money, get a bond, and as our local representatives, is there pressure you can bring politically to bear to our representatives to make this happen, now, as opposed to 10 years from now and 200 houses gone off the beachfront? You got your finger up your nose again saying, oh, well, this is an emergency now. I mean, it's just deja vu. So a little bit emotional and upset because I'd like to see the beach preserved for everybody, and would like to implore you to get some new ideas. I definitely applaud the grant system. There's been a lot more money put on the beach than there has been in the last 10 years from a new approach. I thank you for that. Please continue with that type. And I think politically we need to up the ante on our legislators because they're the ones that are going to control the purse strings. Thank you.
I'd just like to let you know, Mr. Moore, we have done everything you've said, and we continue to do that on a daily basis.
I'm Audrey Porterfield, 301 Northeast 39th Street. Don't you think it's counterproductive to throw a bunch of money to beach renourishment and the Turtle Project if we are starting to build beachfront again? Because that does cause a lot of erosion, and you also have more people going over the dunes. I thought we weren't supposed to build on that. Is this because we have the land developer on the planning board?
Is this I'm sorry.
Well, I'm wondering about the dunes themselves.
Is it a comment or a question?
Yeah, the
If
question
so,
is,
a question to whom?
don't you think it's counterproductive that the town is going to spend this much money on this if we're going to build beachfront?
Well, as far as the FEMA, I mean, the whole reason FEMA has this emergency dune project is so that if the dunes are in such state that there's no protection there, that at least you can get a stopgap measure put in place. So that's the purpose of the dunes that we've just put in place, because there was a way to get FEMA funds to pay for that, to buy the town some time and to buy some additional protection. Dunes are a good thing for protection and for, I mean, if we've learned anything through that, I mean, what you want is a nice good-sized berm out in front of a dune, because the berm can take most of the erosion capacity, and then the dune, what happens is during larger events like a Matthew or with elevated surges, you know, you have that protection to the infrastructure there. So I guess, you know, from an engineering perspective, dunes are always a good thing and something you want in place. Having a berm out in front of it helps it last longer and gives it the time to sort of vegetate and to grow, as the gentleman said right there before.
Right. So why are we building beachfront?
I'm sorry?
Why are we building beachfront? I just don't understand. If we're so into doing this conservation and rebuilding our dunes, why would we want to build beachfront again?
You're talking about homes?
Yes.
Okay, that's...
Actually, this is not an open forum for debate. It's for a question and answer. If you're going to form that into a question and ask the council, or ask...
That was a question.
I don't think Johnny would know that
North
answer.
Carolina is a property rights state, and if you have a Camelot buildable lot, there's not a whole lot you can do about not letting them build on a buildable lot.
So what about the people who lost their lots?
Pardon?
Well, people who lost their lots after Hurricane Floyd. And
What's
we're told
that
they
got to
couldn't
do
build
with
on
building
it.
on the ocean front?
Because they were told they couldn't build on them again. Anyway.
Next.
She must be second row. Stand right there, because you're... Betty Thorne, 2501 East Beach. I don't want to jump in front of somebody else, but since David is standing right here next to me, the horizontal fence that I was referring to, I thought I saw in the paper, Lee, that was going to be part of the Dune project, but if I'm incorrect on that, and maybe I read it wrong, then my question is going to be maybe to David. If I, as an oceanfront homeowner, wanted to spend my own money to build a horizontal fence along that landward toe to keep people from, because I live at the 25th Street access, which is a heavily used access, and we have some pretty bad actors who come out there, and the chief is aware of a problem that I had not too long ago with some of those. I'm willing to spend my own money to build a horizontal fence along in front of my house to keep people from trampling across the dune like that, and doing it on purpose and trampling the plants, and that's what I saw. So would I be able to get a permit to do that?
We will give it to the CAMA LPO officer.
Steve Edwards, CAMA LPO officer. Through permitting, we could aid you in getting a fence permit. You just need to come in and see us. All right.
Over here on this side, David, I see a hand go up.
Just give it to the guy.
Leon Hicks, 4024 Barnes Bluff. So going back to what Councilman Bach was talking about, and you were mentioning the master plan, but if I understood you correctly, you said the master plan is for a recreational beach. So is there a disconnect between all the planning that is going forward toward a recreational beach versus what's need to be done in order to build an engineering beach.
Right, so part of our master plan is to give you some alternatives. When we were talking about this last year, there was a lot of discussion about how much material or how expensive an initial project would be for an engineered beach, and that's why we came up with an option for sort of a recreational beach. You know, as the master plan moves forward, we're still going to update those numbers and give the town and the council, you know, the information to sort of make that decision. But ultimately, it's going to come down to sort of a financial and a risk decision is what it will come down to. And there again, I hope it's come through why we're pressing so hard on some of these other things that would help put some additional material out there so that we could maybe, for the same amount of money, get an additional level of protection. So there again, it's not set in stone yet. We need the next 6 months to a year to do the field investigations to find where the material is. If we can use yellow banks and find good material that's cheaper, then, you know, it all comes down to how close is the sand and how much volume is there, because that's what's going to determine what the overall budget's going to be, and that's what's going to determine, you know, whether we can get a 10-year storm engineered beach for $30 million or $40 million or $50 million. If we have to go out to frying pan shoals and the sail distance is a good bit, it's going to become more expensive. And that's why we will, with the field investigations, concentrate on the closest sites first.
But I understood that the engineered beach is FEMA insured, is that correct? The recreational beach is not?
Well, essentially what a FEMA engineered beach is that it's a beach that is designed to a given elevation, slope, and so there's some interpretation of what that is. As engineers, what we try to do is tie it to a return period event in order to kind of inform the communities of what kind of risk and what kind of storm it's good for. So, I mean, you know, we will look at, I mean, at some points, even a recreational beach can provide some level of storm protection. Maybe it's a 5-year event. Maybe we can get up to a 10-year event if we can get some of these other projects with sand on there. So, I mean, the goal will ultimately be to try to get to an engineered beach so that you have the possibility during a storm event to get reimbursed for the material that's lost.
Because there's no guarantee.
Right.
Correct.
David, there was a hand going up over on this side. I don't.
Yes, sir.
Karaoke night. All right. Bill Gage, 113 Northeast 7th Street. I live here, live on the beach. The beach is calving very badly. Stuff that was put in 2 weeks ago is falling. You put in those ropes. The farthest extended ropes and wood is already down and in the ocean. How long do you expect this thing realistically to last? What are the city's liabilities when the first family comes here? Somebody goes over the top of the dune. Some people's on 10th, I notice, have started putting ladders down because it's not washing away, it's calving. It comes up, it goes underneath it, and you lose 6 feet at a time. That mushes out. Every time you get a break, hydrology 101, where's the, you know what's going to happen. So it's not, and I'm not being rude, it's not even 2 weeks old. You can go on the Oak Island local site. I put pictures up there all the time. There are whole sections that aren't even well planted. The truck treads are not even worn out. So what's the city's liability when somebody takes a header on a misguided attempt at blocking the Atlantic? And are you guys going to go back out and taper it to make it less resistant? Because when it calves like that, it becomes a solid wall. Rather than being put in an angle, or like a sand fence, or God help us, a groin, the Atlantic is washing right slap into that. And you can do it in your bathtub. You put one hand up this way or put it with your fingers and figure out which one. So, sorry. Are we going to have to pay for the first person that gets hurt out there because of the situation now? Because the school's going to be out in 6 weeks. Sorry, it wasn't a statement, it was a question. I have grandkids at school.
Oh, he was next, sorry.
Go
ahead.
Well, there,
If you have an answer first, I'll let you answer.
well, right. So like we said before, I mean, this is what happened last fall too. It is a stopgap measure, and ultimately what the town had to do was to go in and do the tapering, as you're saying, to sort of to limit that issue with safety. And I'm sure that that's what's going to have to be done again, or what would probably have to be done again this year. Well, there again, I mean, we don't have a berm anymore. Okay, so normally a berm would be, let's go back to this plot here, just so we could talk about that. So normally mean high water would not be at the dunes. Right now at Oak Island, the mean high water, I mean, we don't really have a berm, so the mean high water is coming up to the face of the dune, as you're saying, and that's why we're having this calloping and things of that nature.
Yeah.
So a more healthy beach would have, in addition to a dune, would also have this berm that would be, you know, on this slope of 15 to 20 to 1 is where the waves would be, you know, hitting this berm, and that's what you want. Unfortunately, we don't have that here now at Oak Island.
Is it due to the material that you put there, the reason that it's going so fast, that it's not really sand?
No, it's not that. It's just because that we don't have a berm, so anything that we put out there, you know, we were actually just putting this out, and mean high water was almost at the face of this dune where we are, because we have some plots where, you know, back in 2000 when the harbor was originally deepened and there was like 4 million cubic yards of material put here on Oak Island, the shoreline was roughly 200 feet further seaward than it is right now. So over 17 years, it's marched back, and now it's at the base of the dune. So that's the whole purpose of the master plan and building something more, a dune with a berm, so that we have sort of a more natural system. Okay.
Hi, my name is Warren Vassar, Minnesota Drive, South Harbor Village. I would like to say when I came down here in 2003, we chose South Harbor Village because it was one of the largest communities with over 9 neighborhoods and 500 homes. And although we're the farthest probably from the beach, our residents are concerned about the beach erosion, and we're supportive of the efforts to maintain the beach. And I'm wondering, when I'm listening, I mean, this all sounds pretty new, why we don't have a plan in place. I mean, Oak Island's been here for a long time, and, you know, I'm thinking that it sounded like $2 million a year was the number once we restore it, to keep up with that every 6 years. And, you know, I'm wondering what we're doing now, how that compares to what we might have done in the past.
That's kind of a hypothetical.
Well, I can only point to sort of the history, and we have some plots of this in other in other presentations. But essentially, you know, back in the early 2000s, there was, when Wilmington Harbor was deepened, and between the Turtle Habitat Project, there was roughly, you know, around over 4 million cubic yards that was placed on Oak Island. At that point, I wasn't here then, or we weren't working, you know, but my understanding was the beach was actually in worse shape in some areas than it is right now back during that time. I'm not sure before the material was placed out there. I'll say too that one of the reasons, just globally, since you sort of asked the question, one of the reasons that we're seeing this more and more now in North Carolina is because, you know, back when a lot of the homes were built, now this is just Johnny Martin speaking now. So, you know, back when a lot of the homes were built was when we first had these setbacks that are 30 times the erosion rate. Well, if you look at some of the homes, or a lot of the homes up and down the coast, a number of them were built probably in that 30 to 40 years ago. So, you know, what's happened is why you're seeing this now come up more and more across North Carolina as a whole is because when this infrastructure was built, you had this setback, which was 30 times the erosion rate. And so now, 30 years later, now the shoreline has kind of come where it's interacting with the infrastructure that was put in place 30 years ago. So that's why, you know, you didn't hear about this very often along North Carolina, say, you know, 20 or 30 years ago, because at that point, the setbacks had the shoreline was further away. And just over time now with the sea encroaching, just through natural erosion processes, that's why we're seeing now where this has come up really all over North Carolina. Did that answer your question?
Well, you know, just seeing how that's changed, I would hope that we would maybe foreseen that coming and had planned that couple of $1 million a year in place.
Can I speak for a minute? Roughly about 4 years ago, after I came on, I've been here, I think, about 5 now, a lot of the accommodation tax was going to different things. It was going to fund the golf course, it was funding different things, and the money in the accommodation tax wasn't really there for the beach. So the fund kept getting deleted and deleted and deleted. Well, we decided 4 years ago the accommodation tax needed to be for the beach. We put the golf course under rec department and took everything else that was funded out of accommodation tax out. So now all this money goes strictly for the beach. We do not touch it. And then when we initiated this 2-cent tax, it goes strictly for the beach. So we've made a commitment that this accommodation tax should go exactly what it's for and start a savings account, so it doesn't have to fall back where we have to raise all these taxes. So that's the progress, the steps we took to make sure this money wasn't being taken away.
Thank you.
So within a year and a half, basically, we have built quite a pot back up in the accommodations tax fund and continue to do that on a daily basis, basically. We also have a couple other revenue options that we're seeking through the General Assembly, which is a food tax, which will go into the accommodations tax as well. So, a lack of money, I guess, is the best answer to your question.
Josh Sears, 2801 West Oak Island Drive. My question is for the undertow right off the beach, because when we go fishing, we're getting bait, all that stuff. You can go 300, 400, 500 yards off the beach, low tide, you're in 4 or 5 foot of water. Back in the day, it was, 15, 20 feet. The overall master plan, is that going to eliminate that? Because right now, I swim, I recreation. I don't know anything about all this other stuff you've taught. I'm too young. So I look at it more from, the safety of our people when they come to here on vacation. Right. Is you've got, deep, shallow, then deep. So the overall, end game, I guess, is that going to solve that problem? Will we pull from those shallow areas back onto our beach to help fix that, I guess?
Well, you can't really get a permit from CAMA to take material from that close to the shoreline and pull it up onto the beach. So that's really not allowed in North Carolina. Now, you can go far offshore into some of those areas that I showed you on that map, but something that close to the beach is just not allowed to kind of pull that material back, except up in like an emergency condition. You can have beach scraping and things of that nature, but as far as using it to really pull that in, it's just not allowed in North Carolina.
David, we have time for about one more question, and then we'll take a break.
My name is Ken Rogers, 6901 East Beach Drive. The beach out here is public trust property. That means the Eskimos in Alaska own just as much of it as I do, which means the town of Oak Island cannot tax us to pay for that beach because it's the state's responsibility, not ours. And one other thing too, I know this beach. I live at 6901 East Beach Drive, and I invite every one of you to go down 6901 and look at the beach right there. I have a 14-foot high sand dune in front of my house, about 95 yards from my house to the beach. When I came to Oak Island, I looked at it and there were only 2 blocks on this old island I would buy a house. Now, I have looked at this beach since 1950, when I was 12 years old, and I put it all together. And I tell you, the biggest thing, you were looking for a plan. There has been no plan. They have mutilated our coast for the last 30, 40 years, and this is why we have the position we're in today. Thank you.
Oh, you got enough?
Are we going to end it or what?
I think that's all the time for the same question. Quickly.
You never answered my question about liability.
Where's our attorney? Oh, for me? I'm going to refer that to my attorney.
Yeah, we'll get well, I'm sure you're going to have to. I mean, I don't mean facetious, but the crowds are coming. I've already seen kids running up and down the beach.
There he is. We'll ask him.
Brian, as far as the public trust beach, what's our liability if someone gets hurt on the beach?
Now that you've got all the hodgepodge of stuff there, you've got people dropping aluminum ladders, nylon rope ladders, half the things that you put up are already laying in the mud.
That's the question.
What happens when the first guest from a litigious state like, oh, I don't know, New York, gets hurt?
The question is about the escarpments that are now forming with the dune.
Now's a good time to take a break.
Yeah.
Yes, of course. Of course.
My wife is in a wheelchair. We have to have special wheelchair access. We've got 2 places we can go.
Sure.
We've got a spot down here. There are a lot of older people that come here. The beach, it's not even a week old. And all that beautiful work you did is sheared right in half. And some places it's 5 foot straight up, some places 6 feet. And because it's not smoothly going over and has any way to filter, it's hit the hard. And it just continues to grow. And even that new stuff you put out is already falling. I can give you half a dozen for most of these people here where it's falling in the ocean already. So what happens when we've got the whole West End full families from everywhere? You mentioned signage, sir. I will volunteer you that stuff.
We should have just left it.
If you get signs, I got a truck and mallet. I'll put them in the store. You know, but sooner or later you got to put the signage. There's no signage down there. Absolutely none.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Up and down the beach, they're sliding down the slope. That's all.
Okay, we're going to let Brian answer the legalities of being hurt on the beach.
Well, it depends on several, I mean, you can't answer that question in a vacuum. It depends on several.
You can't answer that.
Well, yeah, it depends, exactly. It depends on where exactly in relation to the.
He's talking about the circumstances.
I'll be happy to answer the question if the man will let me.
Would you mind letting me answer the
Sir,
question?
it depends on geographically where the accident happened to start with. If it happens beneath mean high water, that's public trust owned by the state of North Carolina. If it happens between mean high water and the dune line, which is, it sounds like about where we're talking about, that's a hybrid area. Technically, that's private property owned by that oceanfront property owner. However, a recent case in North Carolina from last year, the Nyes v. Emerald Isle case, said that even though it's privately owned, the public has a right to access it. Then the next question would be the nature of what caused the injury in the first place. Are you talking about something where someone didn't look on the other side of the dune and just kept going and fell? Is that the type of situation you're talking about? Well, I mean, apparently, if it's a situation where someone's not looking where they're going and they fall, then.
I mean, you've got ropes that go out to an 8-foot precipice.
I mean, I'm just trying to answer your question. If you want to talk, keep talking.
I'm just saying there's a lack of signage and a lack of what appears to be sort of safety stuff going on.
Well, let me start by saying no one up here, myself included, wants anybody to get hurt. This whole effort was to capitalize on the federal government's reimbursement. We had access to these funds, and I think everybody in this room will agree we need as much protection out there as we can get. Unfortunately, Mother Nature, and given the topography out there without a berm, makes it subject to erosion and undermining. So we have a problem with that. I mean, no one wants that. With respect to liability, I can't answer that just if someone gets hurt out there, because it depends on where there is. If they get hurt on the dune, that's absolutely private property. Absolutely private property. If it's seaward of the toe of the dune, but before the mean high water mark, then that's that hybrid area. And then, of course, beneath the mean high water mark, what we call the wet sand beach, that's completely state property. It would depend on the circumstances, and I know that sounds like a lawyer speaking, but that's the law. It depends on the circumstances. But as I understand it, last year we had a similar situation, and we mitigated it by bulldozing. And it sounds like we're looking at that now. But I encourage everybody in town, if you know of a particularly precarious area where a lot of people are congregating and that there's a more likelihood of some sort of injury, let someone from staff know, and they'll address it immediately. But the alternative would be to do nothing, lose out on all this federal money, and not get what little protection, even if it only lasted a week. At least it was a week.
David, I think what council would like for you to do, based on what we've heard this lady and gentleman speak today, to go out and take a look at what the example, and some of us may also do the same, and see what we can do to alleviate what the concerns are. Yeah. Within reason, within the permit and what Cameron and Cora let us do.
Yeah, we'll do the same things we did last year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Chair.
I just want to say thank you for everybody that showed up. This is one of 2 more we're going to have this year of town halls. And if you think of some kind of topic you're really interested in, email us or email the town manager and let him know some stuff you want to know, so we can have this discussion and let y'all get more involved. Because this is for us to learn just as much as it is for y'all to learn. Because if you tell us something we're not aware of, we're learning something too. Exactly. So just keep us informed. We're not going to sit back on our hands. If you let us know things, we're going to take action. So
thank you for your time.
Thank you guys, and thanks for the opportunity to serve. And we're getting on the master plan right now.
Thank you.
Okay, and I'd like to say, when we come back, we're going to still do our public comments, and there'll be a Q&A. We'll be able to interact as well. So for now, we're going to take a 10-minute break. And
All right, there you go.
I'll call town meeting back to order. At this time, we'll move into our public comments section, and we are asking you to come to the podium as usual. You have a 3-minute time limit, and state your name and address, but we will be able to answer questions and interact, which is different than normal. So, we didn't have a sign-up sheet, so Roseanne, why don't you start us off with a positive note? There you go.
But as we always say from Beach Preservation Society, it's all about the beach. Roseanne Fortner, 113 Paula Circle for Beach Preservation Society. I'm one of the short-timers if council enacts term limits for town committees. But nevertheless, we persist. We are volunteers committed to the beach and the Beach Preservation Society. So we invite you to embrace the Ides of March. March 15th is when tickets go on sale for the Beach Preservation Wine Tasting Fundraiser and Silent Auction. They go on sale to the public then. You can get yours starting that day at the Grape and Ale, the Wine Rack in Southport, or from Dwayne Murphy, our membership chair. That event, which is a big deal in this town, is April 21st from noon to 2:30 at Island Way. I have tickets tonight if you are a current member or if you want to join or renew tonight. I put some examples over here of some of the things that will be in our silent auction. The last day to donate auction items is April 2nd. Thanks for the generosity to date. It's always tough to go out and try to beg for donations, but we meet some very talented and generous people this way. We acknowledge those people and their support through our program, on the web, in the pilot, and with a tax letter for their purposes. On the beach this year, you're going to see a new Beach Ambassadors vehicle, something that we've bought with our funds, and sharing that cost with the town of Oak Island. We have a successful program for Beach Ambassadors to help remind people to stay off the dunes, but we need the backing of greater enforcement from the town to make sure that happens. We can't be everywhere at the time that we're needed, so we all need to work together to protect those fragile dunes that are out there. March 22nd is United Nations World Water Day, focusing on the importance of universal access to clean water. It is a day to advocate for sustainable management of freshwater resources. For us, we're lucky. It's a day of counting our blessings for the quality of water we enjoy here and appreciating the new water meter system that will help us keep track of that. So we thank you, Town of Oak Island, and its beach and water lovers. We all have to work together. Please support the Beach Preservation Silent Auction fundraiser, and we will help you to support those dunes that are out there. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Faulkner. Next.
Evening. I commend you for your perseverance this evening. Kelly Germain, 6610 Kingsland Drive. I'm going to discuss the old business consideration of policy for advisory boards and committees. I totally agree and understand the limit of terms as well as not serving on more than one of the ABC, the Board of Adjustment, and Planning Board due to the quasi-judicial standing. But I don't understand about the Parks and Recreation. We have a hard time getting knowledgeable people to volunteer their time and effort and participate in a lot of these various boards. If someone wants to donate that much time and effort, what's the problem? Sometimes individuals have served longer on the boards, bring very valuable background information and knowledge that's needed. For instance, the Parks and Rec is going through the master plan. There are a few people on that board that have been involved and need to be involved. They were involved with the last master. I'm serving as an advisor, but there are others that have been and need to know about the master plan. If there's someone you do not wish to have serving on a particular board, don't vote him or her on. And if there's a renewal application that comes up, don't vote him or her to continue. This has happened in the past. Why can't it continue to happen that way? But I do agree with the three boards of not having the duplication on more than one of those boards, and also, in fact, having a term limit. So thank you.
Anyone else with a question? You can ask us anything. Sure.
Brandy Kearns, 109 Southwest 28th Street. I've lived here the majority of my life. We moved away for a while and came back to a larger than what I expected to area. People have come and this place has grown exponentially. With that, we have a traffic problem. We do live in an area where we have West Island and West Island Drive, which actually connects to Southwest 28th Street, my street that I grew up on. However, at this point, what I'm experiencing is, with much thank you to have the speed limit signs, the 25 mile per hour, they are treated more like suggestions than actual something that should be followed, something that we would appreciate our community members to actually adhere to. Unfortunately, that's not happening, and we've experienced loss from the area of pets who have lost their lives because people doing 25 miles an hour could certainly stop in plenty of time for an animal, a pet, a dog, a child, God forbid. But at this point, what's happening, we are having a lot of speeders taking our roads, not really as a shortcut. A lot of them actually live in our area, but what I'm requesting would be some type of traffic calming measure, not just for my road, but for others who are having problems with people trying to get around school buses, and they're speeding down our side roads, and they're putting our children and our elderly and our families at risk. So I would like to ask for your consideration. It may be something, speed humps, something that we can do. Is there something that we can do for our community members, not just elderly, but for our young children and our kids, our adults, everybody, to keep them safe, because we're a small community. And I realize that that's a lot of money to be asking for, but I feel like is something that we need to consider, is something that we should possibly look into, some type of traffic calming measure, especially during the off-season when we have so many people down here, because our roads become speedways. It's no longer just, you know, our local people. It becomes way over 50,000 in our area, and they have nowhere to go. So they use our side streets, and our families are really in danger.
What street did you say you were on again? I'm sorry.
Southwest 28th. I sent an email a little over a month ago in reference to the situation, and I appreciate Mr. Blaylock and Mr. Bach coming down to see.
I'm her neighbor. I live on 102 West Island Drive, right over the bridge.
You want to state your name?
Oh, Malia Mearns, 102 West Island Drive, and we see it every day. I mean, they fly up and down. I have pets and children, and there's another child that lives across the street from me on East Island Drive. So we just wanted to let y'all be aware. They go really fast.
Mr. Kelly, would you like to kind of give a really brief overall on the new zoning, police zoning program that Chief's put in place?
What we've done is we divided the town up into 6 different districts or zones. And what we've assigned each council member to one of those zones. Also, the police are picking up patrols and spending more times in each one of those. Sure. So we can do other kind of monitorings and sort of observations. I know that the council members, they had came by and they came back and reported what they had seen and what they had talked with y'all about. But it is something that we are starting to look into. It's also going to help us through the planning and zoning. It's going to get more staff sort of interacting with the citizens and going through the community, trying to see what we can do to assist. And so please, like you did, inform us when you have these kind of things.
Thank you.
And we'll see about getting Greg or somebody to give you a call about the police.
Well, your time was really appreciated, especially, like I said, Mr. Bach and Mr. Blaylock coming down. When Mr. Blaylock was there, it was like I don't know, we had a traffic jam.
Yeah, I was
came.
trying to be discreet until you all came out and started talking to me.
Everybody knew you.
Does anybody know offhand which one of the council is that area? Is the zone?
Zone is that?
Council zone person?
Let's see.
I know it's not me.
I believe it is Scotty's.
West of Middleton.
Scotty?
West of Middleton, yes, sir. So you'll be seeing Councilman Scott.
This is your council zone person.
He's the man.
Nice. Go ahead. Thank you, girls.
My name's Howard Mullendor, 1805 East Oak Island Drive. My wife and I moved here this past September, permanent residents. We love Oak Island, have been vacationing here for a number of years. In line with the people just in front of me, my concern is the overall speed limit on Oak Island in areas where it's 45 miles an hour. That makes no sense to me whatsoever. You're in a residential island, and you talk about the island vibe and laid back and all that, and people come over the bridge and they hit that 45 on East Oak Island Drive, and they're going fast, more than 45, because the sign doesn't mean much. But I think if you lowered it overall to 35 island-wide on the main roads, that would be a good first step to addressing some of the issues on the side roads as well. And I don't know how that happens. I do know that my understanding is there's been part of it was changed a couple of years ago because of a resident that lived in the 30-somethings on East Oak Island Drive, and the Americans with Disability Act that was lowered for a section there from 45 to 35. And the other thing is golf carts are not allowed where it's 45. I didn't know that when I bought here. And not that that would have changed where I bought, but still it would be nice if everyone could take advantage of, if you have a golf cart, to be able to drive on any of the roads on the beach, on the island would be great. So, thank you.
So it's me again, Bob Mora. We were in the deletion, as were a lot of people, for the recent sand push-up. And last year, after Matthew, the town chose to exempt
the CAMA fees for pushing sand up so that we could recreate our own dune, which we did. That was greatly appreciated. And I'd like to request that between now and the short period of time we have left, that you consider exempting those fees, because I would like to push sand up, and I would appreciate any consideration that you could provide. Also, I have some comments. It's usually all about the money in terms of getting our beach renourished, and where we've been, we're here now, and I'm really happy to see that there's some real care being taken on the hotel tax or the accommodation tax. Kudos to you, way overdue. But having lived here through Floyd, I was impressed with the way the renourishment was done. There was a one-time assessment for the whole town, and it was done based on your proximity to the ocean front. I have an oceanfront house, and I think my charge was either $1,200 or $1,500, which I gladly paid. And everyone participated. I believe to the middle of town, those folks may have paid $40. So everybody enjoys the beach, and you know, you got skin in the game. I just thought that might be helpful to put out on the table as a historical point that might be considered instead of a permanent tax increase. Also, in this day and age of social media looking for money, the town might consider a GoFundMe page to see if there's folks out there who would want to contribute money because they care about the beach and the turtles. You can give a social hook to it. I hope you have a social media person. And also appeal to some better angels at charitable foundations that may want to, that may have a real love for this part of the country or this neck of the woods. So that's pretty much what I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Steve, are the dune pushing permits driven by CAMA?
It depends on the permit. If it's a general permit, DCM will have to issue it, and we won't be able to waive those fees. But if we can issue it underneath the minor, then we can talk about what staff directives want to be.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening. I'm Leon Hicks, again, from 4024 Barnes Bluff. And so my first question is for Mr. Eads. This has to do with the South Harbor Village Board meeting. We've had it scheduled for this coming Friday, and we have not had any response from that. So a question to you is this meeting going to happen at 1 p.m. on Friday or not?
Yes, as far as I mean, actually, we rescheduled it to accommodate South Harbor's attorney's schedule.
Okay, very fine. Second question I have, South Harbor Village, as you know, had made a number of concessions to the town council of things we're willing to donate, contribute, and services that we're willing to provide in order to have the town basically sign an agreement for a 5-year period that they would continue to live up to the terms of the original agreement in which the golf course was deeded to the town. We haven't heard any response on that, so the question is, I'd like to find out what the council's feelings are on that currently.
That is a motion that's still on the table, and I'm assuming that most of that discussion will happen during our budget period. Does that help you, Mr.
Yes,
Leon?
yes, I think it does. All right,
I mean, basically, it's going to come up in the future.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Y'all.
Thank you. I'm Joyce Griffin. I'm at 116 Northeast 16th Street. You are taking comments and opinions, right, besides questions? Sure.
You can say anything you want. It's an open meeting night.
That's I'm so.
As long as you do it respectfully.
Oh, it will be very respectful. No, and that's one thing I want to really commend you for having an open forum, a town hall open format. Much was talked about today about the beach. I am concerned about the beach, but I am more of an overall environmental preservation topic that I have concerns about. I moved here 10 years ago. I faithfully came here 10 years ago. I didn't even know where I was going. And it was love at first sight, Oak Island was. I looked there, I came over the bridge, there was beach and trees. I never left. It was heaven. I still love our island, but I am having grave concerns that it will be devoid of our trees, our nourishing undergrowth, our native vegetation, and home to wildlife, and it may become a wasteland with clear-cut lots, complete with bulging houses, and a few non-native palm trees possibly. Supersized homes and rentals translate many times to follow the money for a choice few. Yeah, I'm a tree hugger, okay? I'm also an advocate of clean air, a protector of wildlife. I'm also concerned about the lack of environment, aesthetics, and ethics for our future generations of Oak Island. I've heard you can't fight City Hall. Being respectful. I don't believe it. Okay.
Good job.
Okay. And I also heard you cannot fight the profit makers who have the ability to curtail some of the above activities that I'm concerned about. Our neighbor, the town of Southport, appears to be taking a proactive stance concerning the lack of environment, aesthetics, and ethics. They are concerned with tree preservation and encouraging development that will protect its resources and atmosphere. I say, how about us maybe a little bit? It's timely that our town council has two important meetings this week. This one with the town hall format, and with all residents encouraged to attend and share comments, questions, and opinions. And I don't know how, this seemed like a wonderful amount of attendance. Was it?
It's very good.
I usually watch on television, so so I think that's great. I'm sorry. Okay. I just want to say just all that this is our official sign. It protects us, all right? We need to protect us too. And now being a tree hugger, I'm going to know my age when I say something to paraphrase. We need to not pave paradise and put the trees in the trees.
Thank you.
I'm sorry,
Come
ma'am, can you
Thursday
tell your name
night,
again?
that's part of the discussion.
You want to tell about the meeting?
I know she said it, but I didn't hear.
Ma'am, the clerk did not get your name.
I didn't hear you, I'm sorry. Ma'am.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear your name. Could you say Griffin, thank you so much.
And just,
Councilman Wayne.
and just so everybody knows, we do have a meeting Thursday evening at 6 o'clock to sit down with the contractors and everybody else. There's never been a meeting with the contractors and town council and everybody together to discuss the stormwater rules we got in place and what we need to do to see if we can better and save trees. So we're going to sit down, have a meeting, and go over everything and have a talk and see what we can do. Yeah. And I want to make sure everybody knew that.
It's open meeting. It's open discussion, and that's, oh, yes, ma'am. Yes, public meeting. It's open discussion between whoever comes, whoever asks the question. Yes, sir.
Name is George Bryant, 5183 Minnesota Drive, over in South Harbor Village. Currently this year I'm serving as president of the Master Homeowners Association at South Harbor Village. Glad to hear that our meeting is still on schedule for this coming Friday. It's taken us a while to get there. And I understand the motion is tabled by the council, but one thing that I'd like to make you aware of and get you to understand is we have 600 property owners in South Harbor Village. And while we see the golf course as an asset to Oak Island, it also is the determining factor of the quality of life and our property values. So anything we can do to get this project moving and reconciled as quickly as possible would help us a lot in keeping the residents of South Harbor Village having a comfort level too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any more?
McDowell, live at 6407 Tortoiseshell Court. When my husband and I bought our home here in 2004, it was the full intention to move here and become permanent citizens, which we have done. And we met over the years other people in the same situation, weren't fortunate enough to be brought up here, but we found the place, we moved here, and we love it. And it's disappointing to me to see the town being developed in a way that to me feels like is for the benefit of the 1 week people. So many times when we have issues, so much debate and consideration appears to be, what do the tourists want? We have to have this for the tourists. We have to have a splash pad so the tourist kids can do something different besides sit on the beach. On and on and on. And a lot of the new development now, a woman who was very upset about the beachfront development, if you look at it, I believe they are large homes destined for the rental market as opposed to attracting more full-time residents. I understand legally there's probably not a thing in the world that we can do. Property rights, you build what you want as long as it's within the code of what the town will permit, and the state controls a lot of that.
Yes, ma'am.
But it's more of an atmosphere that if anybody has some ideas about how to foster this as a town as opposed to a 1 week destination, because that's what appealed to us, and I do believe there are other people out there with a similar feeling. So any suggestions would be great. Thank you.
Poor Jeff even came up with an idea of limiting bedrooms, and the state came down and told him very quickly he could not do that. So yes, we see your point.
Anyone else would like to speak or ask a question? Yes, ma'am. Would you mind coming to the podium? Thank you.
Diane Pinsker, 5524 East Beach. I do think the lady in the front row had a good point. I've lived here 5 years. Well, I don't live here permanently, 5 years, but we did build a home and we don't rent it out on the second row. And I remember when I first came, there were a lot of empty lots, and that's because they were non-buildable, right? What I'd like to understand is how it came about that they went from the lots are now buildable depending on certain criteria, and I understand there's a lot that goes into determining the building envelope, but it seems to me that things are out of order. How can you allow, with nothing else changing, those lots to become buildable potentially without the beach renourishment happening first? Because to me, we saw the picture, there is no berm. When houses, and I've actually looked at buying some lots, so I'm not going to say I haven't considered it, because it certainly is attractive to think about being on the front row and not have to watch cars go by. And fortunately, I can, potentially afford that, but it's still, I've looked into this a lot, and it just doesn't make sense that when you look at the berms and how far the high tide line is, and you look at lots and how much building envelope there is, and the fact that all of them will be rental, I'll just say 90% of them will be rental properties. Why is it that when nothing else changed, they're now potentially buildable, and we have less berm than we used to have? So we actually have the reverse situation. We don't have more berm and now they're buildable. We have less berm and now they're buildable. And I'm
Steve,
just trying to look at it from a logical
we're
standpoint.
going to ask
It doesn't
we're going to
make
ask our
sense.
CAMA LPO officer to answer that question for you.
There has a lot has changed, and the fact that the way
Excuse me, Steve, hang on.
Well, just so the minutes reflect that when he's wearing his LPO hat, he's a state employee, not a town.
Right, not town.
Just to clarify that.
as a representative of the state LPO program,
That was good.
a lot did change in that Division of Coastal Management through direction through the Coastal Resource Commission, developed what's called a development line. Prior to this development line, because Oak Island had what's considered a large-scale beach nourishment project, which was done after Floyd, we actually had two. There was a 933 and an 11 something, I can't remember the sections off the top of my head. But because they were large scale, before the project was put in place, the vegetation that existed prior to the nourishment project is what was called a static vegetation line, and all development was to be set back from that static line. 2015 is when DCM started working with the Coastal Resource Commission and a committee to create the development line, and I believe it was passed in 2016, which Oak Island petitioned, and there were several meetings, town hall meetings, discussing the development line and how it was going to change the buildability of the oceanfront properties. And so now we have the development line, which is the most seaward point that a home can be built or a structure can be built if it's a commercial property. And they still have to meet the setback from the stable natural vegetation that's seaward of that development line. So as long as they've got 60 feet or more vegetation seaward, they can build up to that development line. But if they don't have the 60 feet, they have to move back from the development line landward until they get that.
What I meant when I said nothing's changed, I meant nothing geographically, environmentally, no
Well, there's been
additional
some changes
sand
in that
coming
as
in.
well.
I didn't mean nothing politically
Yeah.
or via a
Well,
regulation, because
and-
I
and-
think we've talked, and I probably know those rules about as well as anybody, because I studied them over and
Yeah.
over till they got through my thick skull. But the point
Well,
is
that was
the point is that how can you expect those houses to survive a major event when there is less berm than there used to be? And that's what I said hasn't changed, is because there aren't dunes now. People said they lasted for a while, but now they're gone. And yet people are getting to build. So that's what I don't understand. Because when a storm event comes along and takes out property, everybody's hurt, right? You've got houses washing away and being damaged, and the whole, environment of Oak Island changes. So it just seems to me like we should have renourished the beaches before we allowed the state to come in. And if it is the state, and I don't have that answer, but before we allowed the state to dictate to us that we should now allow building to take place when it hasn't been allowed to take place since Floyd, all of a sudden. So I said my 2 cents.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
One more question. We have time for one more question. Yes, sir.
Hello, everybody. I hope we're still in a good mood and happy. My name is Robert Cohan, general contractor. My son Jason and I are building a home at 506 Ocean Drive. And someone talked about the wildlife. I think it's coming from the lazy turtle across the street.
Excuse me, sir, could you
Barn.
give us your home address? I think she needs your home address. Correct?
Oh, you don't hear too well.
Your
We
home
need
address?
your home address.
Your home address?
Oh, my home address, I live in Concord, North Carolina, 4435 Dawn Ridge. My son Jason lives in Castle Hayne, and he has a client from Wilmington that's actually going to retire here on Oak Island. Isn't it a beautiful place that God has made? I mean, we think about that. God has made this place. It's exciting. And I would hope that we can all get along as homeowners, builders, town representatives, building representatives, and rather than looking at each other as he's the builder enemy or they're the town people enemy. It's not that way. God gives us a chance to love each other and care about each other. And we don't want to be called a Jamestown 200 years from now where is the civilization? Where did they go? What happened to them? So I think if we just reach out to each other and try and get along with each other, there are so many rules and regulations for construction. I have trust in the building department and the town to follow the regulations, and I understand the concern about the people that may not want to build one place or another. But I have a solution. Let's just build it all out, and you won't have to worry about any more lots. It's like the guy at the church said, they had a church meeting, and they had a big church meeting, and several of the folks said, we got together and we have to vote on whether or not to put in a chandelier or not. So one old country boy said, I don't know about a chandelier, but we need more light in the hallway. So let's bring a little more light to this. But the quick question I want is I would like the town to reconsider Appendix B, which says that you have to have fire sprinklers. There is a code from 2012 that says one family and two family homes have been deleted from that requirement. So I think it's a matter of the interpretation of that section from the insurance commission and from the local, perhaps the fire department. But I'd just like you all to consider that. No one wants a fire any place, but there's other issues that have to be considered about the town. And so I just wanted to say hello and everybody be happy and get along.
Thank you, sir. All right, then we're going to move on to the next part of our agenda, which is the consent agenda. I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Madam Mayor, I make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second. All in favor, please. It's unanimous, Lisa.
Madam Mayor, I have a conflict with the proposed date change for the meeting. So I would ask for consideration to reschedule that.
For the April.
Correct.
So do we need to remove it off the agenda so we can discuss it?
Right.
Okay, well,
I'm sorry.
How do we do this, Brian?
Just, the consent agenda has to be unanimous, so if that needs to be discussed, we just pull that off, pass the rest of it, and then that's the first item we discuss next.
Okay. So we're going to pull that off.
Okay. Madam Mayor,
Yes.
we need to pull off the meeting schedule off the consent agenda. And then I would like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda as amended.
Okay, second, please, as amended. All in favor? As
Okay.
amended.
Now,
Unanimous. Okay, now we'll discuss.
now we can talk about it.
Now we can talk about it. Councilor Bott.
Okay.
I'm going to pull my calendar up.
So why couldn't we have it for the 10th?
I have the conflict.
Okay.
It's a personal family.
Okay. And we can't do the 3rd because Mr. Bach has a...
Mr. Bach's going to be out of town, so what days did you say, Mr. Bach, that?
3rd through the 5th, so I can do the 2nd or the 6th or the 9th or...
How about the 2nd? Would that be okay with everyone? That's Easter Monday, though.
That's the Monday after Easter.
Yeah.
Ain't doing it on that holiday.
Wow.
No.
Do it on Friday the 6th?
I'm not here.
I'm not
Just
here
not
either. I'm not here either.
Monday the 9th?
Might as well leave it on the 10th if that's going to be the case.
I can do the
Oh,
9th
yeah,
on
that's
Monday
right.
night.
Monday.
Can you do the 9th?
Maybe.
Maybe.
Yeah, I can make it work.
So what have we decided?
Mayor's not going to be here.
Is everybody good with the 9th?
Monday the 9th.
Yes.
Can you do the 9th, Brian?
Yes, ma'am.
You good with the 9th?
You good with the 9th?
Good.
We're good.
Now,
All right, we're doing, are you good with the 9th, Lisa? All right.
I'm not sure. I would have said.
Steve?
April the 9th. All right.
Make that
Make a motion.
Make a motion, please.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve the amended 2018 Town Council meeting schedule. I need a second there,
Second.
Mr.
All in favor? Thank you. All right, Mr. Kelly, it's time for administrative report, and I understand you have one.
We got a few little things here, Madam Mayor. The pier project's underway. If anybody would like to go look at the pier, we're driving pilings. We're going to start dismantling the pier later this week, and hopefully the beginning of the week, and start putting some members together on the pier. But please observe the signs and stay back at least, I think they have 100 feet on both sides. But we do like for y'all to go take a look, take some pictures, and sort of remember the things as it goes on. The town has removed some of the items from the pier. We've removed the benches, the handrail, and we're taking some planks, and we're going to be doing some kind of putting those up for some kind of fundraiser ideas here soon. So if anybody would like to come get those, I think we have 46 benches, some with backs, some without backs. Then we have handrails that people carve their names in and those kind of things. We're going to make some tables and those kind of things to show people what can be done with them. And we'll have those out and display out there in the main lobby, hopefully at the next meeting. The volunteer program, we're still asking for volunteers. We need them. We have 14 of them that has volunteered so far. We're looking for people to help assist with parking. Also for people to help with the beach ambassadors, sea turtles, anything that you would like to volunteer for, administration. We can always use some assistance and some help on everything that we have, and it's posted on the town's webpage. Or you can come see Rose here at Town Hall and get up with her. Special thanks to the Citizens Academy participants and to the staff for giving their time to make that a successful program. And we are going to look at doing that again next February as well. The group this time, we did it in 4 weeks. It was a very aggressive schedule and everybody participated. So we're going to try that again next February. And Madam Mayor, that's it.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly. Brian, do you have a report tonight?
Pardon me, Madam Mayor. I have a question for Mr. Edwards. Just looking at your monthly report, I'm struck by the phrase under miscellaneous code enforcement, an amalgamate of varying different cases. Pray tell, what does that mean?
Typically, that row in the code enforcement monthly report doesn't have as high numbers. Typically, trash and debris or in the summer high grass type code enforcement cases tend to be the number one. So it's just a comment that it's unusual that the miscellaneous row happen to have the highest numbers that month.
Okay.
Any other council member have anything for the staff administration? That it? Thank you. Okay, where we're at. Moving into the old business.
Get me.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I don't have a report anyway other than closed session.
I thought you already answered that, Brian. Thank you. Last month's council discussed adopting a policy for how appointments are made to advisory boards and committees, and staff was directed to bring back a proposed policy in writing. Councilman Weinkauf, this was kind of your on your initiative. If you'd like to start off.
Yes, Madam Mayor.
Make a motion.
I first started looking at this, and I think we were going to have some input from you too, Brian, on this. But as people look at what we do and how we handle business, how people sit on boards, and if you got some of the major boards in a town and you got the same person sitting on these major boards, the perception is if they're sitting on a planning board and they're sitting on a board of adjustments or they're sitting on some other ABC board, there's input coming into the town. And if you're sitting on one of these other boards, to me, the perception is they're going ahead and they're passing what they need to pass, and there's nothing the town going to do about it. Well, I don't like that perception being out there. I think a person needs, if it's one of these major boards, you sit on one of these major boards.
So who decides what the major boards are?
Well, we know the input. We know the planning board's major, what they do with the town. We know the Board of Adjustments is a major board. I mean, the ABC dictates what money and all the rules and stuff for.
What about the Environmental Services Board?
But they have a lot of impact. They have a lot of impact on what goes on in the town. And just like we were talking about the Parks and Rec. Well, the Parks and Rec is going to make a master plan. It's going to go to the planning board, and then it's going to come to council. Well, if you're sitting on two of these boards, how can you, I mean, you may excuse yourself, but is it fair to everybody if you're excusing yourself for these decisions to be made? But to me, it seems like the way people look at us, they expect us to be able to.
Have we ever had a conflict of interest before?
Yes, we have. We had a husband and wife, and one of them sit on the planning board, the wife sit on board of adjustments.
That's not a legal conflict.
That's not a conflict.
It's the perception
I
that is
understand
there.
that. I just want the minutes to reflect.
Right.
We all know what's being said in here, but the minutes are going to be cold, black and white letters.
But the perception is there that if you got a husband and wife, that's the perception I don't want to happen again.
I'm just saying.
I mean,
But,
there's nothing.
but we actually decide who sits on boards. So if somebody is voted in, it's because we voted them in.
Right. But you
So
had
I'm
a
not sure
previous,
what the-
you had a previous
what-
council who voted people in, and they decided a husband and wife on two different boards was okay.
Well, does this stop a husband and wife from being on two different
No.
boards? I don't see where that would come into play yet.
No, it's perception. It's a total perception. Even if, like you got somebody right now, if they're sitting on plan board and board of adjustments, there's nothing to stop it.
But there's nothing in what we're looking at tonight that would stop me or my
No,
husband.
but
from
if you
being
got
on
one person, they can sit on two boards, board of adjustments and planning board right now. Unless if we didn't have any integrity, we'd vote them on there. And this is just to say, if any other future council comes and doesn't have that integrity, they're not going to do that.
All they have to
To
do
me,
is
I don't want the people looking at me and say I don't have integrity. And
I
that's
don't
just the
think
way
it
I
has
feel.
anything to do with integrity.
I think it has a lot to do
I
with it.
think it's some backyard politics going on, and there's some upset people about being an appointment made.
I
to a
know
board.
people on two different boards right now, and it's not. I don't think it's
If you're
right.
gonna do it for 4 major boards, you might as well do it all the way across the board.
Do it on all the boards.
I don't have a problem with that. I open this up for discussion, for y'all to come back and discuss how y'all want to proceed this.
Okay.
Okay, I agree. The one thing that I have trouble with is calling something a major board. A major board as opposed to, do you want to be considered a minor board? I don't think that's good wording for that.
Well,
I think all boards ought to be equal, across the board, everybody the same. It shouldn't be cited as a major board. Because they're donating their time and their efforts, whether it's one board or another.
Absolutely.
They're volunteering, so they should be treated the same way.
But we still have the authority, or we still do the appointments. I'm not sure why it can't be controlled on a council level.
I brought it up for discussion.
Okay.
Is that not
Okay,
what
I'm
we're
just
having?
discussing. Okay, I'm just discussing.
Yes, and this is a continuation of a discussion we've already had. This, with all due respect to my colleague, is about setting an ethical standard in terms of appointment, and more importantly, from my perspective, in terms of term limits. It's exactly what we should do. It says we are above board without, per the counselor's point, the appearance of impropriety, much less actual impropriety. And I frankly think 8 years is plenty of time. And for that matter, I would support term limits for us as well. I think it's a very sensible, democratic thing to do, and it sets an ethical standard. And that's what we should be about.
Okay, any more discussion? How about you, Scotty? You haven't.
If somebody's serving on two boards right now, I mean, how would that affect? Would we ask them, or we just
No,
let it expire and then
That's what
start?
was the discussion here, expire, and then when they come up for their next, then they would choose which board they want to sit on.
Okay. I could probably go with that. I don't know about term limits, because a lot of these boards and a lot of things, we don't have them lined up around the block trying to be on them. So I don't think I could go for that. A lot of times it's hard to find people.
So we have two scenarios that the staff came back with, and from what I'm hearing in the discussion, it still varies from both these scenarios. So does anyone want to make a motion, or do we want to send staff back to the drawing board, or what do we? I'll entertain a motion if anybody wants to make one.
Well, we have two options, and it cuts to Councilman Blaylock's point about major versus minor, because one variant would impose a standard on appointment and term limits for the, in quotes, major boards, and we heard someone from the audience argue Parks and Rec isn't a major board, and the other would impose it unilaterally on all boards, and I think we have two variants. I don't know that there's a third. We need to decide what it is we want to do. And I, for one, am for term limits and for restricting appointments, multiple appointments to boards, because I think it's an ethical standard that we should adopt. That's my point of view.
Okay, hearing no more discussion, is there anyone that would like to make a motion, whatever direction you decide to make it?
I'll make a motion that we'll not allow anybody to sit on more than one board at a time.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor of the motion that's on the table?
Any further discussion?
Oh, more further discussion for anyone?
Well, after it, assuming it's adopted, I'd like to move to amend it to add term limits, but no further discussion on this point.
Without hearing any further discussion, everyone in favor, say aye. Everyone opposed? No. So, Lisa, read that back so we'll have it clear to the council what
As
they're
I
voting.
understand, the motion was to not allow anyone to serve on more than one board at a time.
And that's all boards.
Yeah, that's what y'all said.
Okay.
So my amendment is already,
Would be a new motion,
It'd be a
actually.
new motion.
my motion is that we adopt a standard that says that no one can serve more than 2 consecutive terms plus an unfilled term on any board.
Second for
Your second.
discussion.
All in favor?
For discussion.
Oh, I'm sorry, discussion? Any discussion? Not hearing any, I'll ask for a second.
I second. I did second. for
All in
discussion.
favor? All opposed? All right, 2 to 3, affirmative from the 3.
So what we just passed was no 2 people can serve on 2 boards with the town. No one person can serve on 2 boards with the town.
Yes.
And the second,
But the 2 people can be the husband and
the
wife.
second motion that, the amendment that Councilman Bach put, that did not pass was no term.
No term limits, okay.
All right. All right, thank you. Committee appointments. Emergency Services Board, 1 unexpired term ending June 20th, 2019.
I have a question before we vote on this, and you know what the question's going to be. Do any of these people who have applied for any of these boards serve on another board?
Under Emergency Services Advisory Board, the applicant that we received that I added to your packet tonight was Eddie Grooms, and he is currently serving as an alternate on the Board of Adjustment.
Okay?
That's the only one? That's the only one that's
Well,
on 2
that's
boards?
just for that one. There's,
Okay.
underneath, when you have the Board of Adjustment, Reese Simmons also serves on the Emergency Services Advisory Board.
And how about, while we're discussing that, is there one on number 3, is Mr.,
No.
Thank you.
What we doing first?
so you have, if you
Board of
follow the rules that you guys have just voted in, Brian, help me here.
Well, I'm just thinking, at the time they submitted these applications, that wasn't the policy. And I think at the very least, since these are all volunteers, we should give them the courtesy of electing which board they want to sit on. Like, in other words, one of these people already served, that applied tonight, that's already serving on another board, may want to step down from that other board because they'd rather be on the board they applied
If
for
we
here.
vote somebody in tonight and
Or you
replace
could
it.
suspend, there could be a motion to suspend the policy amendment, or make it effective as of.
Can we do the committee appointments next month?
Yes.
Sure you can. You can table this if you'd like.
Yeah.
I think so.
You can table this if you'd like. Is that what you're asking?
Can we do that?
Your point's well taken there, because
Anybody?
they didn't know the rules when this was.
Yeah.
Oh, wait a minute, I have a question. So I understand the consideration you're raising, but I thought at the last meeting, when this was, the original motion from Councilor Weinkauf was held in abeyance. It was done so that if adopted, it would apply to these applicants. Did I misunderstand your position?
We said we would adopt the policy so it'd be applicable to any future appointments, yes. So the
So-
technical answer to your question is, it would be applicable to these.
Yes, that's what I thought your position was. Are you changing your position, Counselor?
Well, I don't know that I'm changing my position. I don't know that these were on last month's agenda, were they?
No.
No,
Madam
there was
Mayor,
not.
So my
I'd like to
point
make
is,
a motion. I'd like to make a motion.
Can I finish? Unless, I just want to answer your question completely.
Right, I want to understand your logic, that's all.
Sure. Well, my logic is these people hadn't applied at that point. Therefore, we, as the staff, didn't know if they're already serving on another board or not. And y'all tabled it, but it wasn't passed. I think since these people are volunteers, the courteous thing to do to these people who volunteer their time would be to allow them to elect whether they want to step down from the existing board they're on and keep their name in the hat for the boards they've applied for here.
Well, I'll concede that that's courteous, but that's not the position we adopted at the last meeting, but fair enough.
But at that time, sir, we didn't know there were going to be applicants that were already on another board.
Well, I thought that
That's
was,
and maybe it was my ignorance, but I don't, Lisa, did we know, I mean, were we aware?
We didn't have any applications at that time. I mean, I kind of figured there would be, but we didn't have the applications at that time.
fair enough. Let's be courteous.
Okay, so,
It's a motion to table it.
I'd like to make a motion to table this to the next meeting.
second, all in favor?
Regular meeting, because we have a meeting Thursday night.
Regular meeting.
Regular meeting.
And it was
Brian?
the April meeting on the 9th.
To the regularly scheduled April meeting, which is going to be held on April the 9th,
2018.
2008, in the year of our Lord, 2018.
He's just trying to earn his money, you know.
Second. Somebody.
Second, all in favor? Unanimous.
And just for the minutes, I just wanted to clarify that that means, Mr. Eads, are you listening? Okay. Just for the minutes, I wanted to clarify that that means that anybody that we have currently serving on a board will be continuing to serve on that board until we make another appointment.
Unless they step down.
Correct. Okay, thank you.
Now, can I
The board
clarify
that Matt,
something, Brian? We have people currently serving on 2 boards tonight.
Right.
What happens?
They're fine until they play out their term.
So there will be 2 people until we get to, they get off.
But if you're not already on 2 boards and an opening comes up and you want to get on a different board, you're going to have to make the personal choice. Do I want to take my chances that I'll get that spot and resign from my existing term? Or do I just stay where I am and wait till this term's over and hope something opens up down the road? Yeah.
So hypothetically, if you're on the planning board and the ABC board, you stay where you're at until your term is up.
You do, yes.
So can we ask staff to please contact these 2 people?
I will.
And thank you.
All right, number 1, the Emergency Service Board, we have one, no, we're just going to table it. I'm
Yeah,
sorry,
we'll table it.
excuse me.
Let's table the whole thing, please.
All right, it's time, let's
Madam Mayor,
see.
I'd like to make a motion that we go into closed session to consult with the town attorney on pending litigation and to discuss land acquisition pursuant to NCGS 143, 318, 11A, 3 and 5, and also the, whatever it was I added to the,
Second.
potential
I'm
litigation.
sorry on it, I'm sorry at it.
yes,
Legal.
potential litigation.
Yes. Second, please. All in favor? Thank you.
That scared me to death.
O'Callaghan Town Hall meeting is called back to order.
Madam Mayor, no action was taken in closed session, but we do need to add to the minutes that specific personnel was discussed during closed session.
All right, thank you. At this time, I entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Amen. Thank you.